And then naturally, they've extended severe thunderstorm warning to include parts of Union County, southern Benton County, and parts of Tippah County. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon alongside our meteorologist Gabe Maynor tracking these storms. New severe thunderstorm warning also released for locations back out into Franklin County, Alabama. So we'll track again both of these storms. Some spotty wind damage reports remain probably the main impact that we could end up potentially seeing out of these. The one back in Franklin County, 615 for you, south of Russellville in particular that we're looking at there. And then as we mentioned a moment ago, parts of Union, Tippah, Benton, and Marshall counties all under severe thunderstorm warning until 6:30 p.m. It's the same storm that we were tracking a moment ago. And I think that last second report we had right before we went off of the air is the one that kind of put it over the top there. The fact that the folks over in DeSoto County reported kind of west to east wind damage reports up there in DeSoto County. I think that's the reason Weather Service Memphis went ahead and pushed out this new one here. So near the Bethlehem community in the far southeast corner of Marshall County. Of course, New Albany, we're watching those storms kind of all around you. I'd say certainly just watch the lightning. I'm going to change the way the lightning strikes look on here for a moment. I think in this case, while it makes it more difficult to see certain things, it also makes it very obvious where the storms are the strongest. Follow the lightning strikes, follow the intensity, and up here south of Ashland to Faulkner to Ripney to Dumas, certainly there's a lot more lightning in that part of the thunderstorm, and so that's, I would say, most likely the most damaging portion. You know, just using that as kind of our metric, looking back toward the west. We talked about it a bit ago, the lightning is up on this. You know, it was down to about 700 some strikes. It's now up to about 900 strikes over the last 30, 40 minutes or so. But notice how clustered, if we go back an hour, the lightning was around the storm when it was moving again through DeSoto County, where we had those widespread reports of damage up there and the sporadic damage to Santobia. Well, you saw that from our Maggie McCauley earlier there. Look at the lightning concentration there. We go, say, about a half hour ago during our 5 o'clock broadcast, the quantity of lightning not as significant. Yeah, it was left over there, but we had some up there toward Holly Springs. But then we've really seen it kind of ratchet back up for locations farther east. So again, the portion here that's in Lafayette County, I would say again, below severe limits on this here. Same really the Bethlehem area possibly. It's just, I'd say up here toward Wittentown. If your eyes, I mean, my eyes follow right here to where that lightning is the most significant. That's most likely where we have the bigger concerns with this. We're going to check the wind mode here on Mama Justice Doppler radar. I'm going to check this a couple different ways. That's looking from the Memphis radar out there at the Memphis National Weather Service. Let's go ahead and change it over to the radar at the Memphis Airport here for a moment. Sometimes that can get us a better shot at that wind, just in case there's something a little stronger than maybe initially meets the eye. See, now that, Gabe, we should have been on this radar the whole time. That does a much more effective job, again, showing that arc of long-lived wind that we've seen out. The red's there, again, direction you can see away from the radar up there in Memphis, really south of the airport there, and moving toward Wittentown and Hickory Flat and Myrtle, where that kind of sustained wind is right now. Now, you'll notice that we kind of bring it to the current time, we just kind of get an idea of how fast the radar says. It's mainly 40, 50 mile per hour winds, but in some spots there, that could be up around 60 miles per hour. And just with the history of wind damage, it's enough for the Weather Service to go ahead and extend this warning for locations farther east. So again, tracking that wind in particular, that kind of ring of wind, might be the best way to describe it there. Arc, maybe from Ashland to Hickory Flat, southward, kind of toward the east. We've been moving this at speed about 35 miles per hour or so, Gabe. That we want to go? Maybe 40?
Up to 40.
Let's go 40. Okay. So go 40 miles per hour there. So Ashland over you now. The Darden community, we're looking at this, tracking that toward you at about 544. We're looking at Pinedale, 548. Myrtle, about 549, toward the Canaan area at 553. Hurricane at about 555. Blue Mountain about 555 as well. Let's go ahead and change the size of the locations here, and we'll just extend that farther east. Now, we've got a lot of smaller communities there. For some larger ones, New Albany about 559, so right before 6 o'clock for you. And I know we do have some thunderstorms around. We're tracking kind of that arc of stronger wind generally moving toward you. Now, I don't have as many lightning strikes back here in western Union County, so this is less convincing than when it was in DeSoto County. In DeSoto County, a lot of lightning, very obvious. This, we still see the arc of wind, but is that wind more 40 miles per hour as opposed to 60? That 20 miles per hour makes a difference here, but we're also starting to enter the prime ice storm territory where it's easier to knock down some of these tree limbs. I know, again, we're all going to be sick about talking about the ice storm 3 years from now, and I'm still going to be saying that same thing. But that's unfortunately where this still kind of lies with this. So Ripley for you about 602. We're looking closer to Faulkner about 604 there. Ecru about 605 down south there. That might be a little fast on that for you, but Dumas about 610, Guntown 630, Saltillo about 632, and yeah, the north side of Tupelo there, somewhere around 630 or so. Possibility that, again, some of the gusty wind, whether it's fully severe wind or just some gusty wind, moving toward you by that point in time as well. We'll go and clear that off of there, go back over to the regular rainfall mode here, lightning. There's this boundary here that we're watching as well. We'll check at this a couple of different ways. Let's go up to our camera there in New Albany, where we're monitoring some of the storms there. Excuse me, we'll try to make sure that one is gone. So let's see if I find the right one of these. And so New Albany, looking out of our camera there, again, looking toward some of the heavy rainfall. Again, gusty winds, but not a lot of movement on that camera as of this time. At this point there, and so we'll monitor that as we go closer. Coming back down here to Tupelo for a moment, and our camera there, again, kind of bouncing around. You could sort of see the storm that's on the south side of town on our Mitchell Cunningham and Bowling camera in the Tupelo area. Definitely has a little bit of gusty wind. If I get out of the way for a moment, you can see, again, we have storm south that's, again, below severe limits, might have some 40-mile-per-hour winds on it, and one up north that it's, again, a little below severe limits as well. And appreciate our friends there at Mitchell Cunningham and Bowling. We've got them assigned to a camera up in Guntown as well. Let's see that Guntown camera more in the rainfall, but not moving as much. So again, an example of how that one is not quite as windy as the one that we have down on the south side of town there. Let's get off of those cameras here for a moment. Gabe, again, looking at some of your pictures that you've been sending. I know he's been posting some of those on my Facebook page and his as well. Let's go ahead and bring in our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor, here for a moment. And Gabe, you know, kind of looking through what you're seeing, again, primarily wind damage, it looks like, on some of those pictures coming in, right?
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a full tree down, but it's still some pretty large limbs that are knocked over in Belmont. This a result of a sub-severe storm, but like Matt mentioned, peak ice storm territory. Belmont, one of those locations. Joy submitting this photo. You can see some of those large limbs that are draped over trees. The canopy of trees are in the distance, and even one there on the ground, unfortunately, there in the distance. So, you know, sub-severe gusts can still be impactful, and whether it's those limbs that were damaged from the ice storm that we're trying to recover and didn't exactly have enough time to do so, that's kind of what we're looking at. And then as we're looking at some more of those reports that are coming in, you know, a lot of it's just the dark clouds that are being seen across North Mississippi. So, Matt, you know, reports not necessarily what you want, but if you do have any of those reports, send them in to us through the Mississippi Live Weather app, and we will continue to update you guys what we're seeing, as well as the National Weather Service coming into the next few moments. But power outages, for sure, the biggest impacts being seen so far.
Okay, and you know, do you have any updates on those power outages, or you want to get those ready and signal me back in a minute? Well, there we go.
I can at least show you Tishomingo County, which I feel
now
like
that's a fairly significant one on the south side of the county, right?
Right around Belmont, kind of what we were talking about. That's Belmont and Golden, where we saw some of that damage a little bit earlier on in the flooding rainfall. 859 outages. This would be just west of Red Bay, right along Tishomingo County and Itawamba County, even there towards Franklin County. So glad they issued that severe thunderstorm warning, because this storm definitely did pack a punch a little bit earlier on as those numbers have continued to climb in Tishomingo County. But elsewhere, I can tell you one thing, Entergy is going to be busy tonight.
Yeah, back in West Mississippi. I think that's true. Appreciate that. Our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor. Hey, so you know ahead of this, one way, again, to stay ahead of storms is to track these using Weather Call. It's a phone alert system. It'll let you know if you're in the danger zone. I think of it as one of those layers of protection we might like to talk about when we talk about severe weather coverage, to make sure that you can get to your safest possible location. Again, it does come with a charge. You can see that QR code below me there on the screen. But again, it's something I have it for my family, recommend it for yours. Because it'll let you know if one of these warnings is issued for you. The Mississippi Live Weather app also sends alerts as well. We want as many things to go off as possible to let you know something could be up. In Pontotoc, you're outside of the storms. We do have a shower, if I get out of the way enough, maybe get that out of the way. You can see just pretty much on the north side of town there. Additional showers, the strongest storms are a little bit farther north than the Pontotoc area. Back over to Mama Justice Doppler radar for a moment, looking towards some of those. Again, back toward New Albany, obviously. Again, one of the spots where we were looking just a moment ago there. We're going to check the wind mode here a couple of different ways. Looking at, again, this is the wind, sort of inbound wind toward the radar down in Monroe County. That's why our colors have changed here. Again, direction toward, heading toward the radar there, generally speaking. You can see this boundary sort of sliding southward right there. And that'll probably continue to guide this down towards Saltillo with some of those stronger winds in Guntown and Boonville. Eventually, if it continues kind of moving on that general path there as well. So severe thunderstorm warning continue again for you in the New Albany area. Again, a lot of lightning with this, some gusty winds. Certainly likely as well. And the heavy rainfall, we mentioned this toward the end of our 5 o'clock broadcast. We don't want to kind of miss this here. The rainfall rate has been extremely significant, and the movement on the slows, on the storms, extremely slow. You'll see some of these purples in some spots up here in Tippah County that really haven't moved over the course of the last hour, and that has really started to allow some of those rainfall totals to start adding up to some locations there. Look at our 3-hour rainfall totals there. You'll notice some spots where we're kind of in this yellow color near Ripley and orange, 2.5, almost 3 inches of rainfall over that period of time. So this can be some really, really heavy rainfall over that kind of time period there that we're monitoring as well. Our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor, again, bringing him back in here for a moment. And Gabe, obviously people continue to share their reports with us as well.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Matt. And one of the things that we were watching are some of those additional storms that are developing along the boundary. And I think one of the storms that we need to be kind of shifting some attention towards is over there towards northern Monroe County. As that's starting to intensify, the boundary is becoming a little bit more apparent. And unfortunately, some of those outages are starting to climb as well. As we clear off, unfortunately, that notification there, you can see how those numbers are starting to climb there on poweroutage.us, including parts of Monroe County, Itawamba County seeing a large amount, Tippah, and far northwest Mississippi. But Monroe County getting a little bit more interesting over those last couple of scans.
Okay, well, let's take a look at that here in just a moment. Appreciate that, Gabe. As we do, we're going to come back in here and looking Monroe County and parts of, I would say, still southern Lee County. I don't really show a whole lot in Monroe County yet, but I think, again, it's that storm trying to expand into Monroe County if it kind of continues this. The fact that we have that boundary there, I think that would indicate that there'll probably be some expansion there. Maybe some gusty winds. Listen, in comparison to some other spots, again, that is much, much weaker. That does not to say that this doesn't at some point, take that next step. But this is that one we were looking at over Tupelo Tamarack just a little bit ago. And what this also shows is that if you go above the surface, there's a little bit more storm there than is obvious necessarily on the lowest scans. So around Nettleton here, these probably tall enough. I don't think we're talking about hail, but as they kind of collapse, some 40, 45 mile per hour winds will be possible out of those as well. So we look up with the storms farther northwest, up here closer to New Albany and back up there. I do have one that's kind of back in the midst. See, that one's a little taller, kind of sticking back in there a little farther north. We'll go back to 2D mode to kind of pick that out. And that's, again, that storm that's just had all this lightning up here closer to Whittentown, west of Ripley there, south of Ashland. And it was fairly open territory there, but again, some damaging winds with that. These two really kind of sticking out. The one that's kind of west of New Albany, moving more toward Ingomar, and the storm that we have up here toward Whittentown. Now, let's make sure we're clear about something here for a second. These are not tornado-producing thunderstorms, okay? We're not going to get tornadoes out of these thunderstorms here. But with as much lightning as they're producing, sporadic wind damage, that's why power outages remain the big impact. Gabe, continuing to look at those power outages here behind the scenes. And that one in southern Lee County doing an effective job producing some of those, right?
Exactly. You're still getting those sporadic reports, but right around Shannon, 302 outages being reported just west of 45, as well as 69 outages east of 45, so kind of sandwiching 45 there with additional reports north of Nettleton. As that thunderstorm continues to work its way on through, we have 24 there. Matt, before I let you go, I do want to say Ripley, 1,105 outages there, and that red spot showing up there. So Tippah County EPA going to be busy this evening as well. Additional reports south of Ripley, this will be east of New Albany, seeing a few sporadic outages pop up, but nonetheless, 1,100 outages in northern Ripley right along Highway 15. That's definitely going to be impacting some folks there as additional thunderstorms move on through. But I say it every time, perks of having an app, right? You can watch it without power as long as your phone is charged. So just continue to keep those devices charged if you're out ahead of these storms, so that way you're able to stay tuned with what we have, and you're able to stay ahead of these storms as they move through Tippah County and eventually continue through the rest of Prentiss County off there towards Union County, and then eventually Lee County. I can even hear some of the rumbles of thunder there in the distance as we speak. So we're watching for that. Entergy, one more look out there. A lot of red showing up as those outages are numerous over there towards northwest Mississippi, including DeSoto and Tate County. That was as those storms started to initially move on through, and Tunica County seeing a little bit of that as well. And Senatobia, hopeful Maggie still has power, as well as her entire family, just so they can stay cool as well. But some pretty decent numbers coming out of this storm. I think the latest there, we can use poweroutage.us to really assess that. 17,000 outages across the entire state, with the bulk of that coming out of North Mississippi so far.
Okay, our meteorologist Gabe Maynor again reporting for us here in our downtown Tupelo studios. Appreciate that, Gabe. As we're looking out of our camera in the Tupelo area, looking southward into some of those thunderstorms, the ones he was mentioning there in Monroe County, using our Mitchell, Cunningham, and Bowling camera on the south side of Tupelo. Again, fairly heavy look to that one at this point in time. It does not, again, have any sort of official severe thunderstorm warning on it at this point in time. Our camera, I think, is going to end up moving quite a bit on me when it picks back up here in just a second, as our connection's kind of in and out to it at this moment. Ooh, that's going to keep on going. It took the last command, which was a move. And so we've switched this around, again, looking back toward the northwest. So we kind of have them coming from both directions here in the Tupelo area. The one from the west is more likely to produce some spotty wind damage than the one on the south side of town, but I think both could potentially have a little bit of that. I certainly wouldn't discount that possibility there. Again, so this is our storm moving in from the west. And one thing that's interesting is, again, you have this kind of sustained boundary here that this storm has sort of continued to expand upon, so that will expand southeastward along that as well. We need to get over briefly, and then we'll come back over to the New Albany storm. We need to get over briefly here to the storm, again, east of Red Bay here, east of Russellville. This storm, not as impressive as some of the other ones that we were tracking, but we wanted to kind of get in and get a look at it. Weather Service there in Huntsville issuing this warning a little bit ago. Continued again to show that expansion toward the south and east, about to really cross out of the warning itself. Haven't had a lot of reports on this one yet. Of course, you can share your reports with us using the Mississippi Live app. Just search for Mississippi Live on any of the different platforms to pick up our streaming. And of course, pick it up for Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV to make sure that you're up to date on the very latest on what is possible with these. Gabe's, of course, getting some of your pictures ready that we'll show at the beginning of our 6 o'clock broadcast come up here in a couple of minutes. Again, looking back toward the west on this, nothing really developing back in the western part of the state. As we kind of take the overall look here in North Mississippi, I think it's pretty clear where storms are most significant. This big cluster we have up here, Union, Tippah County, Benton County, and then that storm we have down there, kind of the intersection of Lee, Itawamba, and Monroe counties. Those are the two kind of main thunderstorm clusters that we do have at this point in time here. And really, I would still say peak impact at this time, maybe some damaging wind, but honestly, it's going to be really heavy rainfall out of what we have up there in northern Union, Tippah, Benton counties in particular. This kind of cluster of storms here remains our strongest at this point in time. Bringing in kind of the latest scans here, showing again that cluster there. We'll use a way we haven't shown in about the last 30 minutes or so. We probably should, the echo tops on these. I'm gonna have to kind of pull off the lightning here for a moment. Where you show the darker reds, that shows some spots here where these storms are up to about 55,000 feet. That's some pretty tall stuff there. And this storm again down here, southeast of Shannon, or southeast of Verona, I should say, northeast of Shannon, which really that one that's kind of sliding southward, also about that high. So pretty clear the storms that as they go through a collapsing phase could be most likely cause some issues there, but certainly watching those storms very closely as they go through some of those spots. Okay, we're going to go ahead and begin our 6 o'clock broadcast here for a moment. So for those of you at home, we'll take a little pause for just a brief second, and we'll be back with more continuous coverage. You're watching Mississippi Live on the Mississippi Live app on Apple TV, Fire TV, Roku, as well as Facebook and all the different social medias. We'll be right back.
I have been going to Tupelo Smiles my whole life. When I was a kid, I was unhappy about some uneven coloring on my teeth after getting my braces off, which at the time there really wasn't a fix. I was recently made aware of a solution that would totally fix it, which is exactly what we did. They not only heard my concerns, but they never stopped looking to solve my problem, and that's why I love Tupelo Smiles.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 6.
And we are expecting that we'll continue to probably have a potential for some active weather as we go throughout the next couple of hours here. You can see looking at our hour-by-hour over there. Okay, so looking at the hour-by-hour forecast this evening, as you can see, we'll continue to have some storm chances on the way over the course of the next couple of hours here. The expectation is that most storms should hopefully remain time. Damaging wind gusts will remain a possibility. You're watching Mississippi Live at 6 alongside our meteorologist Gabe Maynor. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. You can see that overall coverage of storms diminishing as we head into tonight. It's really along this boundary that storms are most likely to cause some sporadic issues. Damaging wind reports have been the main story so far. They've been concentrated on really just a couple of storms. If we make this loop here a slightly longer one, Gabe, you'll hit the play button on that for me over there. Looking over the course of the last couple of hours, this batch of storms again moving from Searcy, Arkansas, Forest City, all the way through Hernando, and now through Marshall County, and in northern Union County into Tippah County, where those storms are the most intense and will continue to be fairly strong over the course of the next couple of hours here. I'm going to switch where I'm at here at the broadcast facility back over to our chroma key. Marshall County report coming in just within the last couple minutes. Trees down across Highway 311 in the area of Coldwater Bottoms, in the area of a McAllister. Tree fell on a moving vehicle, but thankfully no injuries reported. One of the many reports we're getting in, video coming in, our Emily Leonard got for us again behind the scenes here of what some of these storms are producing. No location on this, but certainly kicking up some of the wind gusts there. Elizabeth showing you that as much as we're talking about rain and how heavy that rainfall could end up being, it's sometimes just the dry wind gusts, a sign that we are battling a couple things here. Expanding drought, plenty of heat, gusty winds, flooding rainfall, all unfortunately kind of on the table as possibilities. And so I appreciate Elizabeth for sharing that with us using the Mississippi Live app. Again, you can share your pictures with us using the Mississippi Live app, free and available for all of those various different devices there. And we appreciate Elizabeth for doing just that. Bring it back over here to Mama Justice Doppler radar. And we're really kind of concentrated on the most intense storms here from south of Blue Mountain to north of New Albany. Part of a severe thunderstorm warning for those locations. It remains in effect until 6:30 p.m. Tippah, Union, parts of, again, Benton County. Been a ton of lightning. The lightning strikes, something that are really significant and really came up between the 5 o'clock broadcast and this one. You know, the other thing that we were shown a moment ago, our True Shield hail swath, we don't really have significant hail being shown on any of these storms. That's why we haven't been talking about it. We're actually probably too hot to really get into a decent hail, at least in this kind of structure with these storms. Again, not an impossibility, but that's one of the things that, you know, we look for you to report. If you guys have hail reports, you know, let us know there. I see Brenda mentioning, boy, it's moving fast. Yeah, 40, 45 miles per hour on these storms as they're moving through. Very heavy rainfall, Union County, close to Walmart there. Appreciate Justin Mills with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers again for that report coming in. No power reported in Shannon there. If you have power, you can go ahead and, you know, let us know that information, whether you do or don't. That's one of the things, again, Gabe has been watching very, very closely as well. We're going to be looking at some of his pictures that he's been able to get in from you that you've submitted using the app coming up here in just a brief moment. Again, bring back over here and looking on the wind mode on Mama Justice Doppler radar. The green kind of shows that it's possible that some of the strongest winds could actually be a little south of where our warning is. there's this boundary, and maybe you can see it, maybe you can't, coming right there. You sort of see that maybe shift in gray. Either way, that's kind of the leading edge of some of the rain-cooled air that's spread through the Tupelo area, and some of the wind here kind of hugging the south side of that. So while Tupelo, this is not directly west of you with this warning yet, I think some 40 to 50 mile per hour winds still remain possible for you as this approaches over the next 30 to 40 minutes or so. Checking our cameras, we're going to go with a couple of these. We're going to go to Pontotoc County, then we're going to go over to Calhoun County, and then back up to the New Albany area, kind of in the heart of this. Looking at Pontotoc County, again, you can see the edge of the kind of rain-cooled air there. Sometimes we'll call that a shelf cloud. So while no official warning on this, let's make sure we're very clear. No matter what kind of low dangly stuff you see on this, no tornadoes out of these kind of storms. It's going to be gusty winds. That's the main impact that we will see. But certainly what we call some scary looking clouds showing up on there, which is what a lot of your pictures have largely ended up becoming today, have been some of those scary looking cloud sort of pictures that have come in. Down to Calhoun County, looking at sort of the wider shot here, and that one you can kind of see some of the tops there. You can see it also captures again that severe thunderstorm warning from Calhoun County. It's a ways north of that, looking towards some of those storms. Still bubbling up. You can see how that's fairly sharp look there, sort of crisp look. It's one of the signs that this is still a pretty intense thunderstorm as it's continuing to work its way back toward the east. That's our shot from Calhoun County. We're going to come up there to, this would be New Albany, where again, we're in the really, really heavy rainfall that Justin was talking about a few minutes ago there. Very close to I-22 where this camera is. Appreciate our partners there on Max South Broadband, our camera on the tower there with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers. A beautiful shot of what's kind of going on there this evening. And as we bring in our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor here, one of the things that Gabe has been tracking is, again, some of your reports, some of your pictures that you have been working to send in here as well. Get a lot of dark cloud pictures, not a lot of damage pictures, thankfully, but there have been some wind damage pictures.
Exactly, Matt. You know, we have gotten some of those sporadic damage reports, especially coming out of the Belmont and Golden area. Makes sense, right? Whenever you're talking about power outages in excess of 900 down there in southern Tishomingo County and northeast Itawamba County. So that's really been a focal point through this evening. But as we look really at the dark clouds that are coming in from Kinley, let me make sure I have an exact location on this, because it does look like it was closer to that northwest Lee County. That's an area that looks to be a little bit more, I mean, it's going to be gusty, but, you know, definitely looking gustier there in Pontotoc, comparatively speaking. But outages, unfortunately, those are going to climb. And up in Tippah County, we are seeing those climb a little bit more as well, kind of updating the latest there with the folks there at Tippah EPA. And as we zoom in there along Highway 4, we were talking about the 1,100 outages reported north of Ripley. More coming in along Highway 4 as we move closer to Jumpertown, around, I guess that would be southeast Tippah County, and then eventually northwest Prentiss County. That's something I'll work to pull up here behind the scenes, is Prentiss County EPA, and see what they have, if there was any continuation. But really, I feel like the area we need to be looking at is Pontotoc EPA, because more of those strong gusty winds now approaching Pontotoc County. And looking at it on radar, I mean, even behind the scenes, looking at Mama Justice Doppler radar, things are looking a little bit more interesting. And as we look out there towards Tombigbee, of course, those outages closer to Nettleton and Shannon continue to populate in due to that strong thunderstorm moving through Monroe County. So we're going to have to look at a few different locations. So Matt, you'll have to come back to me here in just a moment as more of those power outages are added to our list, and I check more of those power companies through the evening.
Okay, appreciate that. You know, we've got a track on, again, I would say the southern part of this might be the more impressive, and there's part of the storms that are extending ahead. I'm tracking what has been the long-lived wind portion of this thunderstorm here, as opposed to necessarily where the strongest portion is at this point. This has been the wind portion that I think, again, is expanding southeastward. So that's why, while we show the severe thunderstorm warning, it shows Benton County there, as well as parts of Union and Tippah counties, all in effect until 6:30, and we'll bring it the latest time period here. Wallerville 6:10. This is obviously, you're already in the heavy rainfall here that's already through the Reese community and the northwest portion of Lee County. So I'm not tracking the initial onset of anything. I'm tracking if we have the damaging wind here that's with it, probably where the most intense wind is. And it's not necessarily right on the leading edge, because some of these storms have sort of bubbled up in advance. I'm going to give this another loop here. Let's make it a 1-hour loop, because you'll see how we sort of have these thunderstorms up here, but see how you have this kind of right here. I'm going to try to time it there perfectly, and I didn't get it quite right. But there's this sort of part of the thunderstorm that's just kind of stayed organized there. That is the part that could have maybe more of those damaging wind potential as that kind of continues to move toward the south and east. So let's make it a slightly, we'll change the track here to show some larger locations for a moment. Again, Tupelo, we're looking at about 6:31 for you, and current time is about 6:09. So that's Midtown Tupelo, northwest side of town. It's going to be a little bit sooner than that as this grouping of thunderstorms moves in your direction there as well. As we kind of widen things out, look on the wider shot here for a moment, sort of clear things off. We have these kind of green lines, these boundaries indicating where some storms could continue to develop. We do expect a sporadic number of these thunderstorms to continue working eastward over the next couple of hours here as well. I'm going to track the northern part of this line. While I'm not as impressed by some of that, we also have flood advisory that's been issued for some spots there. The locations, I don't know if you can pick out the edge of this kind of green box there. That's a sign, again, where the heaviest rainfall, we mentioned at the top, one of the bigger threats is with this. That's kind of the leading edge of that as well. Let's do the whole sort of north side of where that arc of wind could be and track that at about 40 miles per hour in case it hits folks that are a little farther north. So Fairfield now, we're looking at Dumas now, closer to Pine Grove at about 6:14. Jericho about 6:17, Bethany at 6:19, and then getting closer to Guilleville by about 6:23. And if that holds together more to the east, that'll eventually get there toward Guntown about 6:25, Saltillo at about 6:25 or so, Boonville 6:34, Marietta 6:41, Rienzi at 6:41, and Gabe will swing that Rienzi camera and make sure that's looking west there toward that. Tishmingo about 7 o'clock. Belmont and Golden maybe shortly after that, if that holds together for some of the locations there as well. So as we kind of look at the overall picture here of how things are playing out, we have a front that might knock temperatures back a smidgen tomorrow. Would not expect a huge drop there as far as that is concerned. But this will again be a focal point for storm development this evening. The overall cluster of thunderstorms we have, you can see, largely clears the area by 9 to 10 o'clock tonight and moving 40 miles per hour. We expect that to happen. We might still have a few more down here, Golden Triangle, and what that indicates. But really, this continues progressing very effectively to the east. I do think Futurecast might be running just a little bit fast. Widespread clouds around as we head toward early tomorrow. Additional, maybe some thunderstorms there, try to move in from Arkansas. A few chances for tomorrow as well. So our rain chances aren't zero because this front kind of sticks around through the latter part of the day. So as we look here over the next 24 hours, after starting off with temperatures around 75 in the morning, about as cool as we can get, we're 81 by 9 a.m. Rain coverage only 20% or so, kind of at peak. But kind of like what we've seen today, if you're unlucky enough to see that, you could have some damaging winds to go along with that as well. That's one of the things we're looking at here as Mississippi Live weather continues here in a few minutes. Some of your damage reports, I'm looking at some behind the scenes. We're also looking at a discussion with the National Weather Service. Not likely to see a watch issued. We've had warnings. Warnings are the shorter term. They don't expect that we're probably going to have much more than this storm continue to move east and produce issues. So we will track that in more detail coming up. But 60 seconds from now, it's our Mississippi Live News with Emily Leonard as Mississippi Live at 6 continues right after this.
People are like Bulldog Burger Company. Great burgers. Okay, stop right there. Yes, they make the best burger you ever had. Never smashed, but that's not all. Look at this chicken BLT salad. Just look at it. And a chicken sandwich? No. Come in here. Get closer. It's the chicken sandwich. Wait, where are you taking that? Come back. Oh, that's good.
Reserve your St. Jude Dream Home giveaway ticket by August 28th, and you'll be eligible to win the house and a bonus prize, a 2026 Polaris Ranger, courtesy of Dream Day Foundation. Visit dreamhome.org or call to reserve your ticket today.
Friday, August 21st, don't miss the Tupelo Super Show benefiting St. Jude, featuring the legends of Memphis Wrestling. Reserve your seat right now at memphiswrestling.tv.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here on Mississippi Live on this Monday. I'm Emily Leonard. Oktibbeha County supervisors are looking to make their own last call for alcohol. Supervisors are considering a new ordinance that would create a cutoff time for alcohol sales in the county for resort areas. It would limit the sales to between 7 in the morning and 10 at night for the 5 resort areas in the county. Board Attorney Rob Robertson says it's meant to prevent
People are like Bulldog Burger Company. Great burgers. Oh,
reserve your
Friday, August 21st.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here on Mississippi Live. I'm Emily Leonard. Don't report crimes on social media. That is the message from Monroe County Sheriff Kevin Crook. Sheriff says an allegation against a former deputy was posted to a social media group back on August 4th before it was ever reported to any law enforcement. The sheriff went on Facebook today addressing the situation.
I just wanted to clarify a few things this morning so my team can get back to work. Number one, there is no active working deputy for the Monroe County Sheriff's Department who has any allegations brought against them or is under any type of investigation. Number two, no allegations against any former deputies or law enforcement officers has been brought to our office for us to conceal or cover up. Number three, there were some allegations made on the Facebook page a couple of weeks back. Our Internet Crimes Against Children investigator reached out to the young lady that was the alleged victim and put her in touch with the Mississippi Bureau of Investigations, and they are handling those allegations. So nothing has changed for this department in the past couple of weeks except a bunch of misinformation and hate from people that don't like law and order put out. And so one good thing that's come out of that is I've seen amazing restraint and perseverance and patience by Monroe County deputies in the midst of all of this.
And here's why you shouldn't post crimes before reporting it, according to the sheriff. He says it can compromise the investigation, tips off the suspect, or gives them time to build an alibi before charges can be filed. Sheriff says if you suspect wrongdoing by an officer or a deputy, go to a trusted agency, and that also includes state and federal agencies. The cupola came down. And what is that, you ask of? Well, it is that tip-top part of the courthouse that you see there. This is the Old Lee County Courthouse, and there it is. Cranes and crews out early Saturday morning removing this portion of the dome, the cupola, if you will. This is part of phase 1 of the construction on the old courthouse, which includes exterior of the building, a new roof, steps, sidewalks, and the cupola, which is just fun to say, so why not say it? It'll be rebuilt and replaced. Thank you so much for joining us here on Mississippi Live. I'm Emily Leonard. Have a great night.
There are moments in life when we don't act based on who someone loves, where they're from, or what they believe, because the things that make us different will never change. What makes us human.
March 24th, 2023 was a normal Friday. You know, we knew the weather was not good, but we needed to take shelter, and we didn't have shelter. My husband and almost 2-year-old daughter, Ethan and Riley, they did lose their lives in the storm. We're still recovering from it. We'll always be recovering from it. Matt Lopon cares about the community. He's not just there to collect a paycheck. I feel like Matt Lopon has proven himself trustworthy.
I always make sure I'm safely strapped in before I start driving. So I always check that my child is buckled correctly in her car seat. Check that your kids are in the right seat for their age and size at NHTSA.gov/the right seat.
This portion of Mississippi Live Weather is presented by Little's Jewelers.
Right now, from the Mississippi Live Weather Center, here's Mississippi's chief meteorologist, Matt Lopon.
So tracking a line of severe thunderstorms producing, as you can see, flooding rainfall. That's what it says in the upper right-hand corner of the screen there, as well as damaging wind potential. Guntown, Saltillo, Jumpertown, all kind of in the path of this. 12 minutes left in the severe thunderstorm warning for some of those locations. No guarantees that they will for sure expand it past those locations there as well. You guys continue to send in your videos. We'll have to double check the coding on that, Emily. I think it's jumping past that as well. So we'll do that here in just a moment. I'm going to bring in our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor. I think we should be able to get a live shot from him that he has out and about at this point in time. Let me double check that behind the scenes here. Mr. Maynor, is he up? Oh, he's ready to go. Okay, Gabe, got that hair. Let's do it.
Yeah, man, if you want any indication it's breezy, yeah, you can definitely pay attention to the hair. But you can also look in the distance. Those are the clouds that are moving in along that strong thunderstorm in northwestern Lee County. You know, one of the things that we were noticing was the amount of lightning that's happening there in the distance. Makes sense with the sporadic power outages, but we're right over Huntington Bank Arena. This will be northwestern Lee County. You can see some of those SLC, scary-looking clouds, but definitely some dark clouds indicating heavy rainfall is on the horizon, and definitely some gusty conditions even out ahead of that main cell. Now, with that being said, there's also a look at the strong thunderstorm there in northwest Alabama. We're kind of sandwiched between the two here in Tupelo, so getting a visual on both as we continue through the rest of the evening. But I would say the one to pay attention to right now is going to be the one you see behind me there in northwestern Lee County. Certainly breezy, right?
Appreciate that. Our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor, out there in the wind as that approaches. You know, looking at, again, the wind mode here on Mama Justice Doppler radar, the greens all kind of indicating the inbound winds toward the radar site down in Monroe County. Again, we've had some thunderstorms here that moved down there, 40-mile-per-hour winds maybe. I'd say our heaviest portion here, again, Saltillo back toward the western portion of Lee County. This probably below severe limits, 40, maybe 50-mile-per-hour winds. A lot of different camera shots here to give us some idea of what is going on. We'll start off with our Tupelo camera on the south side of town, kind of looking back into that there. And I see the gray, any sort of low-hanging stuff you see. We are not talking about tornadoes out of these storms. That is not what this is going to be capable of, as that, again, moves toward the camera location there. If I get off just a little bit, you can see, again, there is that line, again, moving its way back toward the east and southeast at about 45 miles per hour or so, as it has been going. Honestly, I might have to adjust our camera over to the left just a little bit more, and maybe be more slightly centered closer to where it sort of has the heaviest portion of that. So again, Gabe's going to get some wind. He says it's potentially up around 60-mile-per-hour winds there. So he's going to get some video of that we'll have come up for you here in a couple minutes. Speaking of that video, here's a shot here that our Emily Leonard got together for us. Again, someone sharing this with us of, again, some of this as that storm kind of moving into and through part of the area. Any sort of twisty, sort of low-hanging stuff you see on these storms, not something that I'd be overly concerned with there. Appreciate that shot. And again, appreciate all the pictures that you guys share with us here on Mississippi Live. Bring it back in here to our Tupelo camera, and I think we'll probably slide this up toward our camera in the Guntown area as well, and then we'll head up toward Rienzi to get sort of a look at these storms. Guntown not moving around nearly as much. Our Mitchell Cunningham bowling camera there looking back toward the west. We'll go up to Rienzi. Our shot there kind of looking into these storms as well. Up in Alcorn County, we're kind of having a look southward into them. Storms rolling in, yes. but the portion that's up there in Alcorn County, moving toward Alcorn County, is substantially weaker. So I would definitely say those storms remain below severe limits for that location. Our chat, where you guys can again share if you've got something. I see Taya mentioning there that it's over top of them. Again, checking on friends there. Kind of faded out of the picture. That happens from time to time there. Sheets of rainfall in Ecru. Sorry, it cut me off camera there for a moment. I think we got that taken care of, though, in the last couple minutes. But there's, again, some of the winds. Our Gabe Maynor outside says that's about 60-mile-per-hour winds potentially out of that thunderstorm there. He's going to get us some video that we'll get and share with you coming up here in a few minutes. If you give me a moment, I should, somewhere in here, be able to pop. I might not be able to pop up what I was hoping on that there. Well, we'll have a damaged picture that we'll be able to show you coming up here in a couple minutes of some trees knocked down in the Ripley area. So you'll have to stay tuned for that here in a few minutes. So let's get again a storm track on the south part of this, which honestly looks a little bit more impressive at this point. The part that's actually moving through the Tupelo area right now. So that's the part that Gabe's trying to get the photo of. And I'm going to do a storm track kind of right around Midtown Tupelo. We'll say 45 miles per hour. Again, that's really precise, so let me expand that out a little bit more. There we go. Let's actually go about 20 miles on that arc there. So again, all these places on the top of that list there. Again, heavy wind moving through East Tupelo. That's what Gabe was talking about a moment ago. Middle of town, eastern portion of the town, kind of moving through there at this point in time, working its way toward well, I mean, most of those are different neighborhoods in and around the Tupelo area. So let's go ahead and shrink it down so we can show locations outside of the Tupelo area. And in advance of this, Verona about 632. Again, we've had some gusty winds there. Might even be an extra little push almost right on top of you right now. Saltillo, we're at 635, Shannon at 639, Mantachie 643, and Fulton about 649. If this keeps holding together at about 45 miles per hour, Smithville about 651, or excuse me, 656 for you. Tremont at 701. We're looking at Detroit at 713. Closer to Hamilton, Alabama at 723. Hodges at 726. You guys continue to send in your pictures, and we appreciate that. We'll continue to kind of show those using the Mississippi Live app, probably the easiest way where you can share those with us. So let's go wide. Let's reset things here for a moment. It's 626. And this is really our main kind of cluster of storms. Let's track where Futurecast has this sort of going from here into this evening and tonight, where we continue to show those thunderstorms progressing eastward. So pretty well positioned here on Futurecast where they actually are. So out here closer to the Alabama state line by 7 o'clock, mainly into Alabama by 8 p.m. this evening. And I know we've already had some storms in Russellville, some wind up there in northwest Alabama. I think all the damaging wind out of this will be eastward by that point in time. That's not to say that some of this doesn't expand farther south, but still some questions as to how far south that's able to kind of maintain itself there. And then this front sort of around will be a focal point to try to see some additional development of maybe some showers and thunderstorms tomorrow, as you see some trying to come out of Arkansas there. So highs, 75 Tunica, 77 Cleveland, 78 Belzona, 79 degrees in Greenville. Normal this time of year comes in 71, so everybody is running way above that again for tomorrow morning, because as much as I've talked about rainfall, the reality is the extreme heat, those heat advisories, extreme heat warnings, those remain in effect for a lot of spots. 96 the high for tomorrow with a heat index 106 or greater. It remains dangerously hot and humid, which is what most folks still experience this evening, in spite of the fact that I've talked so much about rain and storms. Now, some try to kind of move in from Arkansas. Once again, these should hopefully be a little bit weaker tomorrow. Most indications are they will be as they progress in by, say, noontime, diminishing into the afternoon. Maybe a few of these kind of redeveloping, as you can see, around 3 p.m. here. We show Aberdeen toward Columbus, and maybe expanding in coverage there by around 4:30 to 5 o'clock around the Golden Triangle. Most below severe limits, but kind of like today, if we can get enough moisture loading, you can get some gusty winds that are somewhat strong out of these. So high temperatures, we go up to 100 in Clarksdale, actual high temperature there, 103 Greenville, 100 degrees in the Greenwood area there. Let me check here behind the scenes. We should have a video coming in. We'll look at some of the storms, what we're seeing out there here in just a couple minutes. But mid-90s out there at coolest, and then 103 or greater up here Tupelo, Amory, with the Delta most extreme as it has been recently. 110 and greater, the more common number that a lot of us experience. But notice here you can kind of see northeast to southwest, a little bit of a difference there. That has to do with that front sort of bringing in slightly less humid air for some of those locations. Now, I need to check, because I just got an alert from the Mississippi Live app a moment ago that my current location has a severe thunderstorm warning that was issued for it. So let's double check that to see if a new warning was issued. There it is. So there's our new severe thunderstorm warning, and there's my weather call. Let's see if I... Hello?
Just Matt Lawpon. The National Weather Service has issued a severe thunderstorm warning for your location for a storm capable of producing damaging winds or large hail. We recommend seeking shelter in a sturdy building and staying away from windows. Repeating, you are in the path of a severe thunderstorm. This message comes from Weather Call Next Gen.
Okay, and so that's an example of what a weather call can sound like there. And so that's the one, again, that if you decide to subscribe to Weather Call, you would get from us here on Mississippi Live. Back over again to Mama Justice Doppler radar here for a moment. Why is Weather Call still important is because you get those alerts to let you know, hey, if you're in the danger zone there as well. Let's look here at some of the video coming in from this storm in the northwest part of the city of Tupelo. This shot here, I think, coming in from our Emily Leonard in Lee County. Some branches falling, or at least blowing there in the wind. Doesn't look like the big stuff falling there as that storm moved through. Reports, again, some power outages in West Tupelo coming in from some folks there as well. But trees are moving, leaves are falling. At least somebody there, I think, excited the fact that it doesn't feel 10 million degrees. It doesn't look like any significant damage on there, but an example, again, what it can look like as those storms move through. Here's something, again, appreciate our Emily Leonard for sharing that video with us. She is getting all of our videos kind of prompted and put into place behind the scenes here. We also need to probably come back inside, Gabe. Gabe has gone outside, and I don't know if he is waiting on me to go let him back in. In fact, give me a second here just to make sure. Call Gabe Maynard. We'll see if he comes back in here in a second.
Hey, I'm walking in.
Okay, bye. Okay, and we'll get some of those pictures and stuff that he was sending in with us here in just a moment. Let's go and clear that off there. Welcome back, Gabe. Sorry, I should have come back over. Come here.
Oh, it's dusty.
Well, that's what happens when it's this hot and dry for that long.
Golly.
Look at this.
I know.
Why didn't you come in?
I wanted to see you. We were right behind the door, so we were not being.
Look at the.
Yeah, I don't think you can see it on there, but yeah, it's windy.
You're going to have to use those lapels dry cleaning people that, that advertise with us. We'll have to get you cleaned up there. Yeah, that's...
I have good video.
Okay, well, we'll get it in the queues. We'll take a look at it there. Yeah, no, come back inside next time.
Yeah.
Children.
Well, okay, so I will say out there, pine straw, few limbs, garbage can.
But there's not many limbs in this type of town. That
those bushes outside, some of them got stripped good, but...
Okay.
And a few limbs of some trees along the Huntington Bank area. Garbage can got blown, and yeah, pine straw.
The very fact that those are not big trees to be snapping some limbs on that. Like, I mean, it's typically they bend pretty well.
Well, and the traffic lights were even starting to wave in the wind too. So like it was 60 miles an hour.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
So I saw that they continued it, right?
They expanded the warning here for this storm. So yeah, okay. We'll get back over there. Let's see Tippah County and look through some stuff.
I'll get back to normal.
Yeah, next time come in sooner. Appreciate that. Oh, Gabe. Oh, and I'm hoping we don't take a power hit here. It's flashed a couple times. Yeah, no, we're still good on stuff here. But yeah, we're taking some power hits down here as the wind kind of comes through, which happens from time to time as well. If worse comes to worse, everything's still on in the in the home studio, Emily, and you get to track stuff if we go off the air. So good luck and Godspeed, and may the force be with you. She does not look happy about that. Okay, so you guys, again, sharing with what you have with us. And while I have a smile on my face, the reality is that this is producing some sporadic wind damage. This is causing some power outages. Amy Jo Turner there mentioning power out in Saltillo, garbage can, mailbox knocked down, sent a video really bad in Belden. Again, appreciate that. Alicia, we're going to share some of your pictures with that as well. Carolyn getting their weather call there. No tornadoes. Again, want to make sure we're crystal clear on that. No tornadoes out of these storms today. Gusty winds, yes. And there's going to be some low-hanging clouds. We'll check some of the cameras here. We'll see if we can slide down to Amory. I know we've had a couple down here. Some storms certainly worth watching down there. We'll go to our Amory camera. We might have to see if we can pan this up just a little bit, and we'll swing that just a little bit more northwest so you can sort of see the edge of that. Oh, man. But this one has gotten real touchy on how far it goes down. Give me a moment to please behave. Perfect. Okay, got it the right direction there. I'm gonna move this over there as well. So again, appreciate our partners with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers. There we go. Have our door open down here to let in some cool air because the heat sometimes messes with us down here. Large oak tree down Cairo Road in Ecru. Picture in chat. Appreciate that. And hopefully the folks there with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers with that. Hey, Gabe, mute your microphone for a second. Find out who this is here. Oop, and it went away. So never mind. Well, if they call back. Oh, I know what that is. That's that code red call. It tends to come in a little bit slower than weather call, which is fine. I think, again, we recommend it. We want as many layers as possible to let you know if you're in the danger zone. So thank you so much. Again, Amory, this is generally speaking heading toward you. Some wind damage possible, but this is not going to be a tornado producing thunderstorm as it moves in your direction there. Let's go and do a grand reset here for a moment so we can kind of get things squared away. You're watching Mississippi Live here. Again, we're a 24/7 streaming service based out of the Tupelo, Mississippi area. Strong damaging winds, main impact that we have seen out of storms today. We have not had a ton of reports, but we have had some. Gabe, if you could make sure to pass along the National Weather Service there, that report from Ecru, as well as that report from Ripley. Make sure that folks know that, this has produced at least some wind damage, so we're passing that along to the National Weather Service. What you have posted in the Mississippi Live app also shows up in there as well. Gabe, we want to get the monitor on behind you so we can look at some of those app pictures here in a moment. But this line of storms has been long-lived, and by long-lived, I mean really long-lived. If I make this, we don't typically on this radar do something this long. We'll go a longer track, let's say a 6-hour track here. And you'll notice this batch right here, this is the same storm, essentially, all the way in. And this gap we have is just reports that haven't become official storm reports yet, but you guys have already been experiencing. That's what's caused those power outages. It's what's caused some of those limbs to get knocked down, and will probably continue to do so for a while. We'll make this a shorter loop. We'll make it a 1-hour loop, and we'll come in and sort of look, again, some all clears here for a moment. No tornadoes. I want to make sure we're crystal clear on that. And once this is through where you're at here in Pontotoc again, Enville, you're already past the worst of this here as this continues to move toward the south and east. I'm going to have to mute group chats here for a moment. My small group chat is having a great time doing some storm chasing of their own, which they don't need to do. But talking about, again, some power outages in some spots like Saltillo there, which is something that our meteorologist Gabe Maynor is going to pull up here. Again, some of those power reports for you once he has those ready. We'll take a look at that here in a moment. And they're fairly substantial, Gabe, just kind of looking at that monitor shot behind you, aren't they?
Big time, Matt. Exactly. You know, you talk about Saltillo in particular. That's where some of those gustier winds, I would say the back end of those, that line of gusty winds that we experienced, kind of the heart of that in Tupelo. Some of those back building there more towards Saltillo. 426 outages. This would be west of 45, kind of west of the honestly along Birmingham Ridge Road up there towards 348 a little bit more. So we're watching that for you basically right along Birmingham Ridge Road now that I'm looking at it. And then West Tupelo again, I know that you guys last week were dealing with a pretty substantial storm. Even this week, 614 outages popping up for you. So I know that, it's kind of flashbacks to last week, more of those power outages expected, a few trees knocked over, but glad that everyone has remained okay so far, and that's always a positive. I do want to take a look, Tishomingo County EPA. We're still watching that for you as some outages continue to be reported down there. Well, I say some, it's really underdoing it. South of the Tishomingo County Airport, there's 859 outages still, and I do want to look at that report there. So yeah, 977 outages right now, and then that has pretty much sustained itself as crews are waiting on these storms to clear on out before they do get out. Tippah County, another area where we're seeing some pretty substantial outages. Luckily, those have come down a good bit from the last 3 hours or so, Matt. So crews are out. They're just waiting on the storms to get clear so they can stay safe, so that way they can go out and help others.
Yeah, and their concerns continue to be significant on these. The last assessment from the folks there at the Weather Service, putting out an update within the last like 40 seconds, their assessment may be as high as 65 to 70 mile per hour winds out of this thunderstorm. I think that does jive to a certain extent with some of the reports that Gabe's going to be pulling up here in a couple minutes that you guys have shared with us as well. So we're going to check the wind mode here on Mama Justice Doppler radar. We're kind of on the close shot here on wind. There we go. And it does not look ridiculous on this, which is somewhat to be expected. When we get these strong straight line winds, they don't, you can clearly see where they're at. Already we're now Shiloh and Nettleton there, kind of the leading edge of some of those stronger winds, which are running, I think, a little bit ahead of the actual storm itself. So, we look at the rainfall mode here, right? And the rainfall mode says it's way back here. Let me make sure that we're on current time on this. Aha, there we are. So that's still a couple minutes old on its positioning. There we are. There's the latest scan. But you notice the wind is running ahead of that. So you have maybe the very strongest wind right here, but running ahead of that, you still have that gust front of maybe 50 mile per hour winds. And then this is the 60 to 70 mile per hour wind. So I'd say the combination there, maybe it's that one spot there south of Nettleton that they're seeing that as well. Hey, Gabe, are we getting any pictures in?
I am trying to upload that video to...
Okay, we'll worry about that video in a little bit. Let's get the... I think we have some damage pictures that people have sent in. So we'll see if we can get some of those pictures in and up and on first, and then we'll get that video up here in a minute. So looking here, Nettleton, I want to go back a couple scans, see the fact that we have that one there where it has kind of that bright blue, and again, this could be some bad data. Yeah, there's no way that's 98 mile per hour winds, especially in clear air ahead of that. So that's probably a little bit of bending of the radar beam. But either way, that's shows that there's, I think, still pretty good gust there moving here, approaching Central Grove, already moved through the Nettleton area and Shiloh and Evergreen, and that's running ahead of where the main storm is as well. So it's kind of the phantom sort of thing running in advance that maybe will be more evident out of our camera there in Smithville here in a moment. We'll look out of Smithville. We're going to switch that camera around. It's kind of looking back toward the northwest in it, so maybe Amory might have a slightly better shot, and we'll get a better look at Smithville in just a moment. Yeah, there we are in Amory. Again, there's that kind of ring of strong wind moving toward the camera there. Monroe County under a severe thunderstorm warning in effect until 7:15 p.m. Let's bring in Gabe's shot here. And again, Gabe looking at some of the damage pictures that you guys have been sharing with us, Gabe.
Yeah, so this is over in the Springville community over there in Pontotoc County. You can see the large limb snapped off the tree. This is how you can tell it's those strong damaging wind gusts. There's no rot on that tree, so it takes some pretty gusty winds to knock down a limb that large. More damage, another large limb that fell down, this one closer to Tishomingo County around the Dennis community. And we also had, kind of a story with this one. This was over, let me get the grocery store correctly here, but this was over at the Big Star over there in Belmont. And what happened was it was a buggy that ended up flipping onto their truck, onto her husband's truck. Unfortunately, let me see if I can manually zoom this in. And you can see that this was onto the front end of the truck. You can see right there in the distance. So Unfortunate situation. The good part is that the truck is okay and that damage was pretty minimal. So that's always a positive. Still drivable, still manageable. But more of those reports continue to come in, including the heavy rainfall, including those limbs that are broken and snapped. And I mean, we saw the wind firsthand. It's definitely gusty enough to cause some damage. And more pictures coming in as we speak. Let me show this one real quick. Some of the siding ripped off the home there due to those strong straight line winds. This would be over in Chesterville, west of Tupelo, where we had 600 outages there. Raymond submitting that photo. And let me make sure Joey submitted a photo. I think it might take a little bit longer to load in, but damage pictures just continue to flood in. But Matt, that shows how strong those winds are, especially even west of Tupelo, where the heart of that storm moved on through.
Well, and so that's on basically Chesterville. You think west of you mentioned groceries, Brooks out there, kind of the west side of town where that is. So I mean that's still Lee County. And so we expect that we'll continue to have some spotty reports of wind damage east of that as well. Appreciate that. Share your pictures with us. They go right to the Weather Service there. The folks there can see those right with us as well. Smithville, we got our camera swung around. 77 feels like 79. How lucky is that? But this is kind of the edge of that strong wind that's moving toward you. Could have some spotty wind damage. No tornadoes. Always feel like that's something we have to emphasize. Really when any of these storms, but just kind of looking back through this again, you can also kind of almost see the sort of arc sort of shape to the kind of leading edge sign of the kind of the leading edge of some of the wind with that as well. So we'll slide that back there again on one of the water towers down there in the Smithville area. Appreciate that and appreciate the North Mississippi Storm Chasers, our partners there on that camera network here across North Mississippi. So maybe you can pick it out right there. That's our leading edge of the wind that's not really showing up as anything, but it is. It's the outflow. And that's one of the ways we know that there's no tornadoes out of this is because your warmer air is way out here in advance. This has just been a kind of a sustained area of wind. And so approaching Fulton with some of those gusty winds, I bet our Fulton camera probably looks pretty hefty as well. Let's go ahead and get a full storm track along sort of the leading edge right there of that strong wind. We're going still about 45 miles per hour or so. And again, shows the Carolina community now. Central Grove, we talked about you a moment ago there. We're looking at about 646. Cardsville, 648 there. Wren, about 650. We're looking at Tilden by about 650. Bigby, about 650 as well. And we start getting kind of into some of the neighborhoods there in and around the Amory area, back towards Smithville by about 650 or so, 655, as that's moving through some spots there. So we're about 10 minutes out for some of those locations as it's moving toward you. We'll go ahead and change our time frame on this. And we'll size the locations. There we go. And so Hatley about 659. We're looking at Detroit about 710. Hamilton, Alabama, about 716 there. Soligent 721. Beaverton 725. Guin at 729. And Brilliant at 736. This has been all the way back into Arkansas. Damaging wind gusts. No reason to believe it'll be anything different than that going forward. We have not talked as much about our True Shield hail swath today because we just have not had those kind of returns. Still looking at it, still not really seeing much in the way of hail returns out of this over the last hour. Little bits of pink we see here in this atmosphere. That's just not something I'm overly concerned with. That puts it in the possible category, or maybe we had some small hail. Much more likely that we saw some spotty wind damage out of these storms as they progress through. And looking at our severe threats, that remains probably our main issue. And honestly, it looks underwhelming looking at peak threats on here, but certainly not what you guys are telling us in the chat, what you guys are seeing out of the spots. Wind is extremely gusty here in Peppertown, Fulton. Again, that's on the east side of the Fulton area there. I started checking that Fulton camera a minute ago. We'll actually do a power out on Williams Young Road. Appreciate all of your reports you're sending in. Peppertown, crazy wind there. The lightning, something we're looking at there. And obviously some issues from other spots. So there's that cameras as we're looking here. That would be, I guess, the eastbound camera. I want to look the westbound, which is going to be this one here. And I think I don't want to gloss over. I think Gabe might be right, is that this is a pretty decent wall of dust. Is that Is that
Understatement
a
of
fair
the
statement?
year, Matt. Understatement of the year. I'm still wiping dust from my forehead.
You will be. Like that's what happens.
Need a good shampoo heading into tonight for sure. But golly, yeah, it's a wall of dust. Granted, it was a lot of pine straw too, so that was around the time where we shut the door and went back in. But I mean, yeah, it's been so dry. So there's plenty of dust to go around, and so once those winds start whipping, especially the outflow boundary out ahead of it in areas that have not seen rainfall, it's able to pick up that dust and really get it blowing even along the leading edge. So yeah, don't be out in it, needless to say. This is a look at the video. Honestly, if there was audio, you'd be blown away literally because it is loud what was out there, and I had to put one foot in front of the other to kind of hold my ground in this before I meandered my way back inside. You can see some of the dust being whipped there on the ground. The street lights were honestly kind of tossing and turning too. That was where some of the limbs knocked off of those trees there, and there's a garbage can off there in the distance that ended up rolling across the road. It kind of did like a cartwheel, so it was a pretty gusty situation, and that continued even. There's Old Glory blowing in the distance. The trees there by Papa V's were getting some breezy conditions too. You can see the debris blowing past the camera. That's that dust we're talking about, and there's the pine straw. Yeah, moments before disaster right there. And we came back inside, Matt.
Yeah, well, I mean, disaster might be a relative term.
My
on that
eyes
there.
think it's a disaster.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. So again, looking behind you there, things still pretty hefty in the Tupelo area down on the south side of town.
Yeah, and we're getting, as you saw, pictures there closer to Chesterville, that west of the airport. So not all the way in downtown Tupelo, but it definitely did carry over, and the heavy rainfall coming down now. Reporting station, unfortunately, you know, Matt, today is going to be the day we're going to get that looked at to make sure we get those numbers right. But it is just a gust of that cold air. That's that outflow boundary that's getting out ahead of the storms, that rain-cooled air that's developing, and that's a positive to give us some of that cooler air. It's just got some impacts back behind it with those gusty conditions. We talked about the damage report that was submitted by Joey. This along, I believe, County Road 501. I want to make sure I have that right. Yeah, County Road 501. I'm working to get the exact location on that, but some power lines down due to the trees being snapped. So that's where we're talking about sporadic power outages due to wind gusts knocking power lines over or due to knocking down some trees as well. So if you can, when you send in those reports, send in your location too. Otherwise, you know, we can find the location, but it just helps us out and saves us some time if you have that location there as well. And I appreciate everyone who has submitted those pictures so far, letting us know your reports, and we forward that right along to the National Weather Service so that way they know what's going on. I mean, we talked about it at, 6 o'clock, Matt, how they issued a severe thunderstorm warning because of those reports that were coming in. So that's why those reports do matter. It helps with the warnings, helps with the heads up, and helps let folks know what they can experience.
Exactly, and unfortunately, it's sporadic wind damage. They'll probably continue. That's what they're going to keep experiencing. Appreciate that. Monroe County, you're under severe thunderstorm warning until 7:15. You're watching Mississippi Live. Again, we're a 24/7 streaming service based out of the Tupelo, Mississippi area. We do weather. We do news. We saw that from our Emily Leonard a little bit ago. And we are tracking a storm here on our North Mississippi Storm Chasers camera in the Amory area. You can see some of the glow there on kind of the left-hand part of your screen where we're sort of looking toward the drier part. But the wind gusts hitting it despite the fact that the rain has not got there. And that's one of the important factors with these storms is that the wind is running, and in some cases, damaging wind is running ahead of where the thunderstorms themselves are, because that's a pretty good bounce back and forth, despite the fact that's up there on a tower. That's not the only reason why, because if you initially look at this here, we're looking at the Tupelo area, but slide southward here toward Amory, doesn't look like much. But if you look very closely right there, it doesn't look like anything, does it? But if we go over to the wind mode, you can see how the green has already kind of spread now to the eastern edge of this severe thunderstorm warning. So most likely to have the damaging wind a little behind this, but we're still going to have 50, 55 mile per hour winds at least, if not 60 mile per hour winds on that gust front on the front edge as the relatively drier, hotter air gobbles up the moisture and the rain-cooled air coming from it. It enhances some of the gusty winds as well. So that's running ahead of the actual storms themselves in this case here. So again, we're checking all the different ways in which we look at wind on here just to kind of peek and prod and poke the strong gusty winds making it through the Smithville area as well. We'll slide down to Aberdeen. Again, Aberdeen, you're south of the worst part of this here and unlikely to see, I think, wind damage there. But you can see the gusty winds now making this camera in Smithville start to move a little bit more as well. Some sporadic power outages certainly possible with this as it moves through your area. Again, Itawamba County, as well as Lee and Monroe counties, and parts of Chickasaw County, I believe, under that severe thunderstorm warning until 7:15. Our meteorologist Gabe Maynor here looking at those power outages that it's a lot of pink. Pink's not the right color there on that map, unfortunately, Gabe.
Yeah, pink meaning at minimum 300 plus, and we're getting way more than that in parts of Itawamba, northwest Monroe, and over there towards southern Lee County, honestly all of Lee County. You look at some of those numbers, 635 closer to the Shannon area right off of the Highway 6 exit and along Highway 45. 1,143 outages. This will be southwest Itawamba County, getting closer to the Nettleton community, so unfortunately those numbers continue to pile up. 426, like we mentioned, west of Saltillo, and around the Chesterville area where we got the damage to the home, 614 outages being reported as well. One of the things that I wanted to look at as well, we talked Prentiss County earlier on in the broadcast, not a ton of outages being reported out of that one. Tippah County continuing to see a few, and let me pull up Pontotoc EPA here behind the scenes to see some of their outages. And as we view that map, I do expect this number, yep, exactly what I was expecting, just becoming more and more numerous. 1,546 outages southwest of Pontotoc. That'd be closer to the Springville community, right along Highway 9, south of Pontotoc, south of Highway 6. So anyone that is out there, I know crews are responding to it here once these storms do pass. And as we look towards Trey State Park, 239 outages. That's just south of Highway 9 as you're entering into the intersection of, or not intersection, but the corridor between 22 and Highway 6. So that's what we're watching. And yes, eventually these outages transferred to West Tupelo. So different electric power associations, but both for the same cause, and that is restoring power through the evening. The one good thing, if there is a good thing with power outage, or at least a positive you can look at with it, is at least when the power goes out, you are getting some of that rain-cooled air attached to it. So it's not exactly the overwhelming 99-degree heat that we're dealing with the outages. It's 75, which is still warm, but more bearable than what our summer heat has been so far.
Yeah, it's an improvement, and we have to take, I guess, positives where we can see them. But that's a lot of power outages out there, Gabe. So we'll have to keep monitoring that. Appreciate that. Well, hopefully here, this is me telling Emily through the television screen, because I don't have a two-way radio here, and to just check and see if she has heard anything from any of the emergency managers out there of some of the wind damage issues that have occurred. So hopefully we'll hear from her about that here in a little bit. I'll try to keep an eye on you standing up there if and when you have it, or give me a text message on that. Let's see here. Again, I'm going to check our chat with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers, as well as there looks like, again, some delayed reports coming in from the Holly Springs area of some wind damage from what we've had. They also are noting the 50 to 55 mile per hour winds kind of on the leading edge of some of these thunderstorms here. I'll pull up our chat with you guys at home at the same time here for a moment while we're looking at that. The last little bit was blowing stuff everywhere about 15 minutes ago. Loretta, sorry to hear that as well. So let's see here. Braxton, looks like we're doing, just trying to keep on top of this here. Hey, listen, we just appreciate everybody who's willing to go ahead and share with us. And of course, you can do that using the Mississippi Live app. Gabe, I'm gonna send it to you for a moment. I want to see that photo that you just had there a second ago, so you can show folks, kind of, I guess, verify what you've experienced.
Yeah, dust, Matt. Lots and lots of dust is what we've gotten. This along Highway 45 in Okolona. You can see that, yes, while it was the heavy rainfall moving in, that brown that you see there is dust being picked up from the tree line, eventually making its way across the highway. So if you're talking about basically undrivable conditions, this just adds to it. Heavy rainfall, gusty winds, and now the dust being added to it. And more of those reports do continue to come in. I've just been trying to navigate it behind the scenes because there's been so many pictures that that are coming in. Some unique ones that are coming in, but it's just basically showing the structure of the storms. Look at the shelf cloud along that leading edge. This would have been, let me make sure I have the location right, into Tupelo, and we have another visual there in Houston, so not too far away from that report a moment ago. But this is looking up on the 6th floor of the North Mississippi Medical Center, that shelf moving into Tupelo, and that's where we got some of those gustier winds. This right on the south side of Tupelo there, south of Main Street. And then this was a unique picture here submitted to us out of Houston. You can see basically the clouds all around this and then the heavy rainfall just being dumped there in the middle. So some downburst potential at times, but you're definitely getting the heavy rainfall, the strong gusty winds that are being impactful in and of itself. Down in Houston, I assume that was not too far away from 45. That we got a picture submitted in a moment ago of the dust and the rain. This just adding to it more proof of the impactful storm down there, Matt, in Chickasaw County. So we're watching down there. I'll pull up Chickasaw County EPA in just a moment, or at least some of those power associations down there to get a look at some of their power outage reports. But with the lightning, with the rain, with the dust, with the wind, I mean, a lot of factors that are going to add to those totals.
Do we ever say dust?
You're back in Texas, Matt. Welcome home.
Well, that shot you have behind you looks a lot more like it.
Yeah.
I saw those shots all the time in Texas. That's a real amazing one there. I appreciate that, Gabe, that you're sharing with us. We'll reset things here for a moment. We're coming up on the 7 o'clock hour. And as we do, let's talk some, cancellations for folks. Pontotoc County, you're out of this now. Far northwest portion of Lee County, out of the severe thunderstorm warning. I would say Chickasaw County. Anything more significant is going to be on the leading edge here, and you're past that at this point. The gusty winds, that 55 mile per hour wind gusts all the way out here through Amory and Smithville, now east of Fulton there, almost to Tremont at this point. The actual storm itself running a little bit behind, has been running behind. And one of those things that, again, has had the strong gusty
Matt,
winds.
audio.
We've gone along with. Oh, hit that button over there for me. See, this is why.
Hey,
So,
Emily did it, so shout
rule
out
number
Emily.
1 is always wear your earpiece, Gabe. Don't take your earpiece home, Gabe.
Welcome back to the studio, Matt.
Oh, man. I'm going to get written up by Matt. Actually, Mrs. Lawpond's probably going to write me up on that one. Oh, well.
At least you know she's tuning in. Staying safe.
She is indeed. I see her working behind the scenes as well to hopefully get some information to you guys. Appreciate all the hard work she's putting in on news and all the reports that you guys continue to give us. This kind of looks this big green here, this big green blob. That's the leading edge of that gusty wind we're talking about. And as much as I say gusty, it might as well say dusty because it's gust and dusty on the front end of that. Hail, not something we're really concerned with. Though I do want to check out this storm. I wanted to look at this storm up here near Detroit. Been watching this kind of out of the corner of my eye for a while. Let's go and put a 30-minute loop on this here as this storm. I mean, still could have had some sporadic damage with it as well as it moved toward the east, kind of out of sort of ahead of everything else there. Showing a little bit of gusty wind out of that one as well. On a more organized day, we might actually have to watch that for a little bit of rotation. In saying that, that's mainly, I think, again, some heavy rainfall and then possibly some of the strong gusty winds from some of the downburst potential out of these storms today. So, again, back everything I'm looking at, though, probably 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts, each of those kind of leading storms possibility. We have one that's kind of popped up down here closer to Aberdeen as well. We'll look three-dimensionally on some of these storms here to get kind of a look at that, just to see kind of how big those are gone. And see, that's the thing. That storm right there, underwhelming when you look just at the 2D version, but 3D, a completely different thing. Same with this storm here south of the Houston area as well. Those don't look nearly as impressive, and the storms that have the official severe warning up here aren't quite as impressive either. They've largely, but this is the second time when it was in northwest Mississippi, I was like, looks like we're just about done, and it's continued to ramp back up. So, let history prove what it's going to prove on that there. Let's go down to Aberdeen, though. Our camera there showing up right now in Monroe County with kind of that storm right overhead and just sort of ratcheting up. No official warning for you, Aberdeen. We're 82. Feels like it is 91, so that's a huge improvement there. But again, the gusty winds, maybe 35, 45 mile per hour winds out of this. as it moves, kind of collapses over the Aberdeen area. Different than our official severe thunderstorm. This one is kind of popped up and going through a bit of one of those collapsing phases right now, and that's when it sometimes kicks out some of those heavier winds. We'll slide down to Caledonia for a moment. Our Caledonia camera there, in kind of assessing a few different ones. The storm that's just north of Caledonia has just in the last couple of moments here prompted a severe thunderstorm warning there for folks in Lamar County. Just give me a moment to see if I can pan this toward the north. So those are the northern Monroe County severe thunderstorms. And then this storm here is the one that's now prompted a severe thunderstorm warning in Lamar County. And that kind of heavy rainfall falling out of that there is the reason why. I'll step this camera side so you can see it. So Caledonia right there. This is just a little bit north and east of town where that is, right on the Mississippi-Alabama state line. So coming back on over to, again, Mama Justice Doppler radar. It's the one right there near Malloy, moving toward Vernon. And here's the deal. If I were to take this down to just the regular rainfall mode on this here, it doesn't show any of this stuff on the east side there, right? It just has what's fallen there near the Bedford area. But we go back to 3D and look at that. You have all that that's aloft there. It's going to fall on the north side of Vernon, probably spread into Vernon. So that has prompted a severe thunderstorm warning for Lamar County that is in effect until 7:45 p.m. Current time is 7:04. So for some folks there in Lamar County, again, expanding eastward with this as well. So we'll make this, again, a 1-hour loop. I'm going to trade Gabe places here for just a moment while I work on some stuff here behind the scenes. And I'm looking toward Emily. Emily, give me a thumbs up if you've got something, and thumbs down if you don't. Let's see. She's got a thumbs down up there, and that's a good sign. That means we have not had a whole lot of significant damage reports from her. So Gabe, as you take over for a moment here, new warning for Lamar County, and then other storms developing southern Monroe County as well.
Yeah, not shocking at all with how many boundaries that we have, just kind of allowing for the development and the ignition of some of these storms and unfortunately the strengthening that occurs as well. So as we look at that storm over there towards Lamar County, one that we need to continue to pay attention to over there towards Vernon and now moving closer to Hytoge. You know, talking about a track on this, what was your speed? Did you still have it about 40?
That one, I would say, again, I would say 35 to 40 seems very reasonable. It looks like a new warning there for part of Marion County as well.
Yes, so right along that leading boundary, when we talk about that gusty edge, that gusty outflow, so let's put it on that latest scan so that way we can get the exact positioning on that. And as we kind of drag that out, technology is not really cooperating at the moment.
I'll switch your spots.
Yeah, it's a little.
The National Weather Service is not going to extend the Lee, Monroe, Itawamba County warning there past its conclusion, which is no shock because the storm itself has largely collapsed, but it's just had such a history of producing the wind damage. I think that's the reason why they've kept it going all this time. So it'll expire at the end, but we've had additional thunderstorms kind of developing along the edges of it. We have not looked closely at this southern Chickasaw County storm, so we'll look at that. Hold on, real quick. What were you tracking before I disengaged you a second ago?
Just the Vernon storm down there towards Lamar County.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do that here. Slide up north to get a shot of that here. So, and again, north of Vernon is where that storm could be most intense. Look at the echo tops. You see we're too close in to have a good shot at that, but maybe a little bit of hail possible out of that on our True Shield hail threat. So watching again along Alabama Highway 17 north of Vernon. This is going to be expanding toward you. Back on the lowest scans here, again, we're still waiting. This is where our heavy hail and rain or whatever it is, and the next batch of strong gusty wind is about to fall out of it right there. So let's track from that point there forward, we'll say, and by the way, if you use your middle mouse button, you can scroll your view out at the same time you're holding it. So if you don't have enough room, you can make room that way as well. So Crossville, 716 for you. Mount Vernon, again, we're in Lamar County, Alabama by about 724. Fayette at 7:31 there, and Rossland City at 7:35 in the path again of that storm. But as we slide back over toward Houston, and Anchor and Woodland, let's get a shot. This one is on our boundary, one of our boundaries there of rain-cooled air, so everything south of this is just nasty. North of this is cooler, but that storm, checking the True Shield hail swath on that one, comparatively speaking, nothing with that. So that's a good sign there as we kind of look at that all the different ways. So you will also note, again, that is now starting to show a deeper, darker purple on our peak threat, meaning the likelihood of maybe seeing some large hail is increasing. So we're going to have to continue checking that hail swath. And a reminder, the reason why we do this is we pair up with our friends there at True Shield Roofing, who are doing the best they can, again, to help out folks with roofing. But they're also giving away a $100 gift card if you have the largest hail report and it's in excess of 1 inch in size. And so we do expect that it's not impossible to get some hail out of this storm, still in the possible category. Once this gets up in the probable, the likelihood is obviously a lot greater that we're starting to see some hail damage potential out of this there. Our meteorologist Gabe Maynor has been looking again at the pictures that you guys have been submitting. A lot of damage pictures still coming in that I see him pulling up there behind the scenes. Gabe, let's take a look at some of those. Where are we looking at with this one here?
So this is a look at Tupelo, and it's kind of the before and after is what I call it, because during the storm you can kind of see how, or I guess before, during, and after, you can see the damage that took place with those strong gusty winds, knocking down some of those large limbs. I will say, grateful it didn't knock into any of those power lines, but it doesn't really matter for folks out there in West Tupelo dealing with those power outages in a large part of the community. And then the rainbow after the fact, so that's the beauty of the rainfall. Unfortunately, we do have some damage that came out of it as a result of that rainfall. This is also a look at damage. This is a shop. You usually have this whenever you have those metal buildings where the metal just kind of gets ripped off. You get a gust of wind underneath it and it just rolls off of the building. That's kind of what you have here. Some of that metal kind of ripped off the building, and that was a shop over there in West Union. Gary submitting that photo, and a scary sight and a scary experience as he was describing it. I'm glad that everyone is okay, because you know, while these storms moved on through, you can see some of the damage that they did. And the tree limbs, this is why I always say when it's wind, just go inside the house and go away from the windows, because whenever we're talking about strong wind gusts, it can knock down some of those tree limbs, and as a result, it can fall onto structures. In this case, this is a look at a carport, and that limb is not overly thick, so it's not going to be as dense as, say, a tree or something of that matter. So it still was enough to dent that carport in, Matt. And you can imagine if that was a window, probably knocking that window in. So that's why we say stay away from the glass, stay away from the windows and doors, and just kind of get to that central location inside the house, similar to tornado rules here, but just to stay away from any of that potential debris, limbs, trees that could be flying around the area.
Okay, and I'm going to let you toss to Emily because I think the shot is set up over there. I see that she is ready.
Perfect. Well, Emily, what do you have for us that are coming out of these storms?
So Gabe and Matt, I was able to catch up with the Lee County Emergency Management Director, Lee Bowdry. And Mr. Bowdry told me that right now they have 8 incidents, mainly tree damage, trees down, ranging anywhere from Shannon up north to Saltillo. He told me that he's compiling a list of these incidents and these damage reports for me. So hopefully he will have that for us just a little bit later on. I've also reached out to Tippah County, Pontotoc, Tishomingo counties. Right now, I haven't heard anything back, so we're going to take it as no news is good news, but you guys keep showing damage from various places, most of it wind damage, unfortunately, and a lot of power outages. Looking at the map for Tom Bigby, there's a lot of outages in the area. A lot of friends texting me saying that, hey, I don't have any power in Saltillo, but don't worry, crews are out there. They are working on it, especially once it is safe for them to do that. Also, Matt, I wanted to bring up a couple of things for you just really quickly. I put in a couple of videos, both of them out of Tupelo. One of them from the hospital. It's a pretty good shot of the rain coming down in Tupelo near the hospital, and a couple other things for you as well. But from here, just trying to wait on some reports and see what else we get in.
Okay, I appreciate that. Our Emily Leonard there reporting again from our North Tupelo studios related to, again, some reports of wind damage from the folks there at Emergency Management in Lee County and power outages remaining one of the more significant issues. Though I did see, again, someone emailing me just a moment ago, so it came across my phone there, that at least in some cases, power is starting to come back on. And so anytime that's the case, that's usually a good sign there. See if this worked, if this button is set up to do what I think it's supposed to do. Survey says that button doesn't work, so it didn't do what I hoped it would do. So instead, we'll pop up the chat this way for you guys to, again, share what you are seeing with us as well. Tons of power outages. Well, I see Real Scorpion Queen on YouTube says tons of power outages in Pontotoc County, but Randolph is back on, but power out in East Fulton. So this is the thing to keep in mind. But ultimately, the thing to keep in mind here is that we're going to continue to have, I think, these sporadic power outages, but they're typically not going to be super duper long lasting. So yeah, just let the power folks do what they're going to do. And again, thank them if you are able to see them when they come to your neighborhood as they work to try to get the power back on around the area this afternoon and evening. As we check out and zoom in here, again, want to emphasize this one more time. The severe thunderstorm warning we have in place for Lee, Itawamba, and Monroe counties is going to be allowed to expire here in 2 minutes. As that storm has collapsed, the strong gusty winds have run ahead of that. You can just see, looking three-dimensionally here, eastern Monroe, that storm over Aberdeen, the storm there, again, south of the Houston area, really south of more Okolona and then south of Houston. These are a little bit stronger. That Aberdeen storm there, we're just cutting into the top of it, seeing some of the purples. Let's go back to our camera in Aberdeen, which is probably fairly heavy rainfall on that at this point. Let's take a look here. Right there in Aberdeen, we'll look at just how it's kind of coming down there. And it's sort of shifted a little bit east, ever so slightly. Again, Aberdeen and Monroe County. That warning for the northern part of the county is the one that's set to expire here in the next couple of minutes. Let's see if we can pan our camera just ever so slightly there. I'm going to have to look to the left here just a little bit more. It's going to take its time on reconnecting there. That's what tends to happen. Sometimes we keep our video connection, lose our actual connectivity. Oh, we're going to have a good shot of a rainbow here in just a second as this kind of pans over to the east. Again, the sun back behind this here kind of help us to have this shot here, a nice shot there again in the Aberdeen area. But it's possible that part of what this is refracting off of isn't just raindrops, but it's probably also a couple of hailstones at least with this as well. But looking back toward the east, again, the heaviest part of that east of the Aberdeen area. Bring it back in here to Mama Justice Doppler radar, and I believe that's my all clear from an older version of Weather Call that I'm set up on here. Let me double check. Hello? Yep, that's what that is. Okay. So now we have, again, those storms, and then the storm over Vernon's got a lot more impressive in the last few minutes as well. So looking here, again, around the Vernon area at some of the heavy rainfall, gusty winds that this is producing there, as a lot of it's, kind of made it to the ground. That green line, that sharp green line is the leading edge of the gusty winds. But again, this is that heavy precipitation. I'm looking all 3D on it to see that a lot of it is sitting up aloft there above the thunderstorm. At this point, Vernon and Lamar County under a severe thunderstorm warning until 7:45 p.m. there. Gabe, I'm going to have you take a couple other pictures here, kind of give us an overview on that, because I've got to restart one thing here. So I think I can do because it looks like it's fine on the air, but my control behind the scenes is just a little bit behind. And it looks like the number of rainbow pictures starting to increase, which is always a good sign when we get more rainbows than some of the other things that are coming in.
You're right about that. These were photos submitted by Casey just in the Tupelo area. Let me make sure of that. I believe in the Tupelo area before I go talking too much. Yeah, so Tupelo, Mississippi. And just look at some of the spectacles, even a double rainbow being seen out there in Tupelo as well, just kind of thumbing through these. Really some cool cloud iridescence there along the leading edge of those dark clouds. So almost a rainbow fixture there as well. Really cool photos, Casey, and appreciate that you for sending those in to us here at Mississippi Live Weather, and definitely some neat shots that, I'll be honest, I've not ever seen anything like that before with that cloud iridescence there. Lightning, also a big factor, including a rainbow. There's rainbows in every single shot. We've gotten a damaged picture with a rainbow in the background. Now, those are some pretty decent cloud-to-cloud strikes over there. Let me get an exact location on this, but I mean, we're talking Morville from Maya. So, those are some pretty decent lightning strikes over there in the cloud-to-cloud strikes. You hear those rumbles of thunder for sure, and the rainbow there in the background, you can definitely see that this was after the storms kind of moved on through. I remember back, 3 weeks ago or so, there was a lightning strike that ended up striking a home in Saltillo. And the whole time that we're shooting video of what took place, there's lightning that's still going in the sky. We're seeing it happen. So you get a lot of those cloud-to-cloud strikes whenever these storms even pass. So that shows that even once the storm passes, kind of give it a second before it clears on out before you do go outside, because we don't want that lightning to end up being a cloud-to-ground strike and being a little bit more impactful. But, usually with these strong storms, once these do clear on out, you can get a few of those strikes even beyond the extent of that storm. More of those rainbow pictures coming in. This one, a pretty great shot out there in Tupelo from Melanie. And you can see those dark clouds there in the distance, but a complete rainbow being seen in Tupelo. That's actually right past Main Street. So Mississippi Live Studio in that picture there in the distance, Matt. But I mean, I can say first and foremost, we had an impactful storm, and definitely going to be definitely going to continue to be those impactful storms as we head through northwest Alabama and even towards around Chickasaw County. Which, speaking of, I did pull up the outage map for Chickasaw County, and this is just towards the south and west. So this will be more towards Houston. And you can see how the large number of outages, about 168 there. Let me actually zoom it in a little bit more so you can see it. 168 outages along Highway 15 along the Houston bypass there. This will be just south of the Houston airport where we're getting the largest number. Kind of zooming things out there, more sporadic outages along Highway 15. So this is an area that we continue to pay attention to. In fact, let me refresh that just to make sure that we don't have any additional outages. Yeah, so still around that same number. Pontotoc County, this is a positive for you. We're talking about those power outage numbers coming down, Randolph getting power back. Well, those outage numbers going from about, 1,500 to 59. So those are trending in the right direction. Along Highway 6, still 232 outages. This would be just northwest of the airport, northwest of the Walmart there along Highway 6. And Trace State Park, still about 239 outages. But you look at the map, we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's probably 30 individual spots on this map alone where there's an outage occurring, and the crews have to get out to those spots. So, of course, they're going to try to eliminate the largest numbers first, but then you see one outage there along 6, another report of 2 outages further down the road. So they're going to get to it as we head through the evening, and some areas more busy than others. Speaking of busy, Northwest Mississippi had an absurd amount of outages earlier on, including Tate and DeSoto County. Now looking at those numbers, while they have come down a bit, there's still a large number to report. Even out there towards the Sledge community, this will be around Crenshaw. Remember our camera that we lost right at the top of the broadcast? This is exactly why, with the power outages that took place over there along Yellow Lake north of Highway 315, and then additional outages up there towards DeSoto County, albeit pretty sporadic. But as we look east of 61 and west of 55, where those reds are showing up a little bit more prominent, that's the West Days community, and some pretty large numbers there as well. So folks, continue to try to restore that power, even over there in Tishomingo County. I do want to look here, but I'm sure they're just trying to let these storms pass on by and definitely make it a little bit safer, because we saw the cloud-to-cloud strikes a moment ago. We don't want to be up even higher, even more vulnerable to it. So I know crews are expecting the same thing and doing the same thing, and I recommend them to stay on the safe side. South Tupelo, right around Shannon, those outages still around 663. I'll refresh it here to make sure I'm not missing out on anything, but West Tupelo, 630, Saltillo, 426, Nettleton, 1143, including areas southwest Itawamba County. Tom Bigby is going to be one of the areas that are very, very busy this evening.
Okay, yeah, a lot of them out there.
Needless to say.
Needless to say, that's true. I appreciate that. Our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor, there again, going through some of the power outage situation. Let's make sure we can give some all clears here for a moment for some folks. Again, I think we're really, for most of us, again, past the worst of this. For all of our friends here on the Mississippi side, again, there's going to be some power outage issues we have the next couple of hours here. This batch of storms we have from Chickasaw County back to Monroe County, if these and when these go through a collapsing phase, some 40, 50 mile per hour winds are possible, and that will cause some sporadic power outages. That will cause some sporadic wind damage. But this is not a tornado situation. And everything back west here, we're done. We're not going to see redevelopment. It's just you have this kind of boundary here, and we talked about this at 5 and 6 o'clock, how we'd still continue to probably have some storms here approaching the Golden Triangle through the 8, 9 o'clock hour perhaps this evening before we're all done. I've kind of kept this in 3D mode because it just kind of shows what isn't necessarily as obvious when you just go back to 2D. In 2D, you can see kind of your blobs of red, right? And there are two in particular that obviously are most significant. Back here in Marion County, of course, that's one of those. 645 here, Tucker, Glen Allen. We're tracking that for you. Again, moving eastward at about 35 to 45 miles per hour. This is not moving quite as fast as that other thunderstorm that we were looking at. In fact, if I do this, I'll show you that this isn't probably anywhere near as fast as I just said it was. It's probably, see, that's probably only 20 miles per hour, which is vastly different than kind of what we had. It's sort of following the area where the development has occurred there, moving southeast. So that one moving a lot slower. So again, we'll go, I'll say 30, but it's honestly developing ahead there because you can see there's that little one right there ahead on I-22. That's the thing, like it's following kind of the intersection of those two boundaries there. And as those kind of come together, that meeting point is what's helping to spawn those storms. So that's going to continue right along I-22. So if you know someone who's traveling on 22, clearly we're going to have some issues with that going forward into the evening. Likely probably still to continue to have some storms that are fairly strong there. So you can see some of the times there. Eldridge at 7:30, Clark at 7:34, Kansas at 7:37. And honestly, the place that'll kind of develop the storms is right on the leading edge there. And so that gives you kind of a better time there for some of those spots where maybe the beginning of some development there. Yeah, it's all rainbow pictures I see with Gabe back behind the scenes tonight.
Not a bad view to have.
Not the worst thing. Not the worst possible outcome. That's for sure. We have not talked about our flood advisory back out here for Union and Tippah counties. Does kind of scrape part of Lee and Alcorn counties into that as well. Might barely clip Benton, but that is where we had a lot of the really heavy rainfall. Earlier, looking at the 6-hour rainfall totals, that's where certainly some of those totals have been the most significant, but it comes down in a big hurry because obviously we hadn't had much there in Lamar County until those storms, and now we're up in excess of 1 inch to approaching 2 inches. So this is really, really heavy rainfall where it gets going and when it gets going for some of the spots there. Sun's out in Fulton now. That's a perfect example. Lights went off, but back on there in the Houston area. That's a good sign. Let's check our camera down in the Houston area, and then we're going to slide down to West Point. Again, Golden Triangle has not had much, has stayed kind of on the proper side of this, and just gray skies there in Houston. Coming in at this instant, sliding down toward West Point, and then we're going to come over to Gabe and a shot there. Whoa, look at that one. That's a pretty shot there in the West Point area from our camera with the folks there at Fastnet. Might as well. Well, there you go. So that's looking at some of the spotty stuff again, back sort of west of the West Point area.
Screenshot that one, my
man,
word.
Oh man, is that not? That's gorgeous. I'm gonna have to fake it. Oh, I can't get around that. Hold on. Well, I'll have to log in and move the camera. Gabe has another shot. We're gonna come back and look at this one again here in a second. Gabe.
Well, so you say that, not much has gone on in the Golden Triangle. This is actually looking along 25 north between Louisville and Starkville. I mean, they're basically getting a front row seat to what's going on here in North Mississippi as you see some of those, what almost is an overshooting top. You're getting that anvil there, at least trying to form with some of those stronger thunderstorms, the leading edge of those cumulus clouds, and even out towards the northeast, more towards Alabama, where you're getting a visual of some of those high storm tops. So we talked 50, 55, 60,000 feet. Well, there's your 60,000 feet right there, at least more 50 to 55,000. Either way, strong thunderstorms still being seen all the way down in Starkville, actually northern Winston County. Let's take it even more south. So that really shows you the height of these storms, the structure that they've had, and the impacts that they've had as well. More of those reports do come in, and I'll basically show you what Matt was seeing. Rainbow, 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 rainbow. So lots of rainbows to cover, Matt, on top of the beauty that's behind you.
You know, you're not going to get the rainbow on this specific shot because you need the sun behind you in order to get the rainbow where it is, and the sun's on the other side. So rather than in West Point, if we were still talking about somebody, say, well, back in Una, you know, well, Una, you're too far up there to possibly get it. But if you're back out toward, say, Manti, you might have a shot there on some of these where you can see some rainbows. But sun getting close to the horizon, so those number of rainbow shots. The rainbows get taller, by the way, as sun get closer to the horizon because the sun's more directly behind you. And so because of the way it refracts the light, it looks like the rainbow's going to get taller. So we're not at the peak of that yet, but beautiful shot on our Fastnet camera. And a reminder that if you have not seen the rainfall, and this is a reminder to folks that are out of power now, at least it's rain cooled and you're out of power because folks down south, still all the heat. But that's an example of one of those isolated areas where that rain falling out of that and kicking out some strong wind gusts potentially. Just a beautiful shot there on our camera in the West Point area. We'll slide back to Maben for a moment. We'll look again, that's looking more toward the gray stuff. See, we might pan this camera just a little bit, see if we can get a slightly better shot on this. So this one's kind of looking north, but if we slide that westward, oh, that is in slow motion, isn't it? Let's try that. Okay, so we're going to slowly move. So that's the convective. Sometimes we'll talk about convective debris, like the leftover stuff after storms form, the high, thin clouds, then from the decaying storm, the severe storm back up around the Tupelo area. And as this gradually slides back toward the west, an example of sort of what it looks like when you don't have the storms out there. Give me a moment, I'm going to have to... There we go. That'll move a little faster. There we are. Looking back toward the beautiful sunset from the Maben area. Appreciate that. A shot again from the folks there at Fastnet, provided by 4 County on that location there. A couple rainbows. I'm assuming we're not seeing it as much in the Aberdeen area. 79 rain-cooled degrees there. I know Tupelo had one a moment ago. There's a bright rainbow. Also looks like we might have some Mammatus clouds on this shot in the Tupelo area as well, assuming I step to the right side of the camera shot here for a moment. A lot of cool stuff going on in this one. And these bubbly sort of clouds you see there, those are what we call Mammatus clouds, and the sign of turbulence up within the thunderstorm. You can see the precipitation largely kind of rained out, and a lot of that probably evaporating. So there's still probably some 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts below what's barely even looking like a thunderstorm on radar. Because sometimes those can be just as potent and impactful as others. Looks like power has come back on at Casa de Labando there. So at least some folks in Saltillo getting their power back, including the Law Pond residents. Thankfully, we have a backup power there. Kicking this over, we talked about that. We'll finish, I think, the forecast that we cut into a little bit ago. I'll come up here in a minute. But new severe thunderstorm warnings looks like placed into effect by the folks there in the National Weather Service in Birmingham. They went with big ones just to capture the entirety of the rain-cooled air with that outflow boundary there. That's what that green line is kind of moving forward, is that rain-cooled air kind of spreading south and eastward with this. And so just kind of a big, sometimes we'll call it cold pool. It looks like just a big wave moving southeastward. That's what that is doing right there from Millport back to Fayette, Alabama. Some gusty winds continue with that batch there as well. Gabe, I'll trade you places here for a minute. I'll try to fix a little something here. But largely, we have not had a lot of damage pictures coming in lately.
That's the goal, right? Just to keep the chat kind of quiet whenever we're talking about damage pictures, and just get the rainfall that we so desperately need, as we've been talking about for the last several weeks now. We've been a very dry atmosphere, and even through the weekend, that air has kind of kept us a little bit warmer, a little bit hot. Yeah, we've all felt the heat through the weekend, so any of that rain-cooled air will be a blessing to kind of cool those temperatures off. But Northwest Alabama continues to be the focal point. This as that boundary continues to move on through. In fact, you're getting those boundaries kind of colliding in certain spots that could produce additional development, kind of acting as a convection point there, or at least a lifting mechanism to perhaps produce a few more strong storms. But yeah, kind of a blanketing warning there that issued until 8:30 on your Monday evening. So as we track that out, let's really track out that outflow boundary. And Matt, I'm going to ask you again, speed that you had on this on the last track.
I was not moving as fast. I would say 30.
30?
Double check it. It was not moving as fast.
30? Okay, well, let's double check it to kind of track that as it moves more into Alabama. New state, new track, might as well. So as we track that out, we're going to keep that, kind of watch these individual cells as they fired off. And in fact, it's got a little bit of an interesting movement to it. You know, that there is only about 22 miles an hour because of this cell. Like, watch right here. So we watched this one near southeastern Monroe County, just outside of Aberdeen. Watch the movement on this. Kind of almost directly east. It interacts with that boundary, became severe, and has kind of keep that eastern movement to it. But along that boundary is where we see some of that initial development, and that development will continue on. So let's track out the boundary actually. It's not going to be necessarily the movement of these storms, but it's at least going to show where that initiation point might be for additional development through the rest of our evening. So as we drag that out, it's going to measurement on that. It's still not going to be 40 miles an hour like it was earlier on. We're sitting at about 30 miles an hour. So as that tracks towards the south and east, we can do an updated storm track there, and we'll go right along that boundary. So again, storms probably going to be a little bit after this boundary, but the boundary is what we need to track for any of that severe development. And as that moves at about 30 miles an hour, let's track that out. You can see a few towns listed in there, including Jerusalem, 734, Eastwood Hills, 735. We're seeing Holly Grove, 735, Townley, 735, towards Pea Ridge, 737, Hillsdale, 739, Hilliard, 741, and then further into Bankston by 742. Now, as I trim back a few of those towns, you can see that as we clean things up there, Jasper, this is closer to my parents actually, Jasper, 745, Barry, 746, Oakman, 751, Parrish, 757, Cordova by 758, Reform, 801. So Reform actually going into Pickens County, one of the newest locations added to that severe thunderstorm warning. Brookside 827 along with Graysville, Adamsville 830, and Coker at 832. So we're watching this for you. The one good thing with the later in the evening that we get, we're current time 7:30, and as we've been seeing beautiful sunsets across North Mississippi, shout out North Mississippi Storm Chasers, love that Skycam network, especially on nights like tonight where you're getting those visuals. But as we track these through the night, these will start to weaken as nighttime sets in. We don't have that sun to kind of get things going, mix up that atmosphere, and really get these to fire off during the peak heating of the afternoon. So as we head further into the night, then that will weaken these out. We just need that sun to fully set before we see that weakening phase occur. So we'll watch that through the rest of the evening. This warning expiring at 8:30. I'm hopeful, I'm speaking to my Alabama friends here, that you won't be dealing with any severe weather out by you tonight, out towards Northeast Alabama, I should say. So as we track out that boundary, specifically for North Mississippi, really has weakened over the last hour or so, right along that boundary. You can see how things were firing off there towards Houston. That's where we talked about a few of those power outage reports. Now that's over the West Point area. We should have a view out of West Point on top of that sunset still probably ongoing. But as you look past that sunset, you can see the heavy rainfall still occurring north of West Point, northern part of Clay County, and sun there on the horizon, about to set as we speak. 91 degrees, so the rain-cooled air not fully into West Point just yet. And to give you perspective, let's go down to, say, Macon, and you get a visual of just how hot things are. Temperatures coming in at 96 degrees. So yes, in all of this, there is a positive in the fact that you get some of that rain-cooled air. Now, even from Macon, looking north, you can see the cloud tops a little bit higher. This is northwest. This will be more towards West Point. But there's a little bit of that anvil that we saw a little bit earlier on. You still have some of those rigid clouds along that leading edge, and that shows that these could still climb along that boundary and intensify, but it's a bit of an uphill battle as that moves through Clay County and eventually more towards Lowndes County. So folks there at Fastnet giving us some great shots down there, but really showing the hot temperatures that still remain in effect for portions of North Mississippi. Now, if you want positive for the Golden Triangle, tomorrow does have some rain chances trying to move closer to your location. So we're hopeful for that for you and hoping those remain below severe limits as well. Let me say, behind the scenes, you guys are doing a great job submitting those rainbow pictures. I keep seeing more and more come in. So shout out all of our weather watchers out in the field for keeping us updated on what you guys are seeing. As I look at the... Yeah.
There's a hub sitting up there like a week or so ago. You know where it's at?
Hub.
Okay. Never mind. Don't worry about it.
You're the young tech savvy guy. I'm old.
Don't worry about it.
So as we track this out, 7:36 current time, this severe thunderstorm warning is in place until 8:30. As Matt was mentioning, reports have not been, they've come in, especially up there towards Florence, Alabama, up there towards northwest Mississippi. And you can see how that some of those severe thunderstorms were developing more along I-20 and actually I-59 more towards Chattanooga. That's where we've been watching for some of those additional severe thunderstorms. But in regards to down south of Highway 6, haven't seen a ton of those reports for you. Now, looking at that level 1 risk, you can see how that does encompass parts of Highway 6, even a little bit south of there, and down there towards Pickens County. This is just showing how really buoyant our atmosphere is to allow these storms to continue to fire off and continue those severe thunderstorm warnings. We're just hopeful that those reports remain minimal, as is indicated by that level 1 threat. Now, what you see right there is an additional severe thunderstorm warning being issued for Franklin County and Colbert County, Alabama. So this is going to be east of Russellville until 8:15 there for Franklin County. This is going to be along Highway 43 and north of Highway 24. So putting the latest there on our winds, it's been the primary factor with this overall setup. I do want to also look at our hail swath, our True Shield Roofing hail swath. Not overly impressed on that, so it does look of a wind situation there. And lightning, honestly, seeing an increase as well over those last couple of scans. Put that on a 15-minute loop. Let me change the lapse increment to 1 minute. And as we see that over time, coming up from about 118 strikes at 7:23, now up to 159. So the increase in lightning also indicating a strengthening that's taken place. So National Weather Service in Huntsville is issuing that severe thunderstorm warning until 8:15 for Franklin County, Alabama. Also, they've gotten several reports up there around Florence towards Killen, Alabama, and all along Highway 72. Had to actually drive that road to a wedding this past weekend, so it was a beautiful drive along 72. So there's plenty of trees to knock over up there, and that's probably what they're dealing with north of 72, closer to the Killen and Lexington area. So as we look at these severe thunderstorm warnings towards the Fayette, Alabama area, Fayette County, and towards Pickens County and down towards Tuscaloosa County, these continue to remain gusty, all things considered. Those bright reds showing about 50, 60 miles an hour. So you can still get some of those sporadic wind damage reports. Sporadic power outages continue to decline. But as this continues to move on through, we're hopeful that this continues a weakening phase compared to what it was once it moved through northwest Mississippi. So as we continue southern part of Lamar County and into Pickens County, not seeing a ton of development along that outflow boundary. So that's showing that there's not as much initiation. I'm hopeful that that will continue to diminish as we head further into the night. So we'll keep eyes on it, as we always do, as we have through the entire state of Mississippi, as it's gone from west to east, but now towards northwest Alabama, the primary concern, and we'll keep eyes on that moving along 22. Now, this one near 22 almost concerns me the most because of what it's impacting. Folks driving along 22, unfortunately, are going to be driving in what is a downpour of rainfall. And I told you guys a couple weeks ago how, out towards the Hamilton area and then now moving along 22 closer to Jasper, my wife and I, including Cruz, we always go see family in Birmingham, and every time we drive this corridor between Jasper and Hamilton, we are caught in a strong thunderstorm. So I don't know, there's just like this little boundary there that always fires these off to be a little bit stronger. So drive with caution and make sure to monitor those conditions. There's a few stops along the way that I think would be worthwhile to just stop at, let these storms pass on by, and you'll be sitting in a much more comfortable environment with just a light to moderate rainfall on the back end of this severe thunderstorm warning. So tracking that out in particular, we're going to keep it at about 30 miles an hour along that leading edge. Now this does look a little bit more disorganized as it's getting a bit more outflow dominant, but as we track that specific one out and we continue to move it at about, I'm going to put it more southeast directly over 22 just in case it does hold together through those areas. You can see the Seadrum community 743, Holly Grove 746, Townley 747, Macedonia 749, Gamble 751, the Pleasant Grove community 755, Manchester 756, McCollum 757, talk about Jasper 759, and Hillsdale by 8 o'clock. So if you're driving, I would go ahead and let these pass on by. They are moving at about 30 miles an hour, so don't try and race it, but you should stay out ahead of it if you're on 22 right now, closer to Jasper, because you're going 70 miles an hour, storm going about 30, so you should stay out ahead of this. Towards the south, let's track Fayette County and looking towards Lamar County. This continues to be a gustier part of the storm. I do want to look at how that's trended over the last, 15 minutes or so, to see if those brighter returns have come down. I see that one near High Togi getting a little bit more impressive at 7:30. Now as we're at 7:41, you're still getting some of those brighter reds, but it doesn't look as organized as what it was a moment ago. This part up here towards Mount Vernon, that's one to pay attention to as it's moving closer to Fayette County, because you still have that bright return there on our wind mode, indicating some of those stronger wind gusts, and that's going to verify to the ground with anywhere from 40, 50, maybe even up to 60 miles an hour when it comes to those gusts. Now, Pickens County, what we're watching for you, overall, it's the outflow boundary itself being the gustiest part for you. Bethlehem community seeing that in just a moment. Let me track that out, because while we're not seeing rainfall with this, it's not going to be your typical, hey, here's when to expect storms. It's, hey, here's when to expect some of those gusty conditions. So specifically for Pickens County, as we continue to take this at about 30 miles an hour with that outflow boundary, you can see how a few areas that are included is Palmetto right now, Melrose 752, Delma 753, LeBub by 755, Beards Mill and Zion by 757, Reform 757, Fairview 802, Gordo 810, and ECLA by 811. So that's where we can see some of those impacts for you. But Matt, I know that here in North Mississippi, things are trending better, dare I say, beautiful, with the rainbows that you have behind you.
Well, I think grateful, the way some folks would describe this. This shot here again, you can see with I got the new. See, this is why you don't allow me to run the stuff here. Let's go, Gabe, change, computer, did it. Okay, Lisa sending us some shots here. Miss Lisa out there, room to room, of some of the double rainbows she's capturing, and they have the zinnia field out there. I don't know if you've ever checked it out. Have you ever been out there, Gabe?
I have seen their flower garden out there.
It's kind of like there's part where, you know, just you can go check it out, like in, you know, if you do it the right way, maybe snip a flower or two. But there's a giant wildflower zinnia sort of field out there. Anyway, she was very thankful to see that the rain actually fell there. Nice shot with the cross and the rainbow kind of overlapping those two things. Appreciate that. Appreciate all the pictures you guys have been sharing with us. I like this shot here north of Highway 45, north in Columbus. Brittany with a shot looking towards some of those storms up there closer to West Point and Aberdeen. Again, the beautiful color shade that we have that as sun is going down as we speak there. Again, you can share your pictures using the Mississippi Live app. Most of what we have, again, rainbow sort of shots coming in at this point in time here. Every time we hit refresh, we got a few more of those. Great farmstead sort of look as well out of that one. Again, Mississippi Live app, just search for Mississippi Live or Mississippi Live Weather, depending on your platform there. That was from West Boonville, Full Rainbow by Wanda Brown. That one submitted in. So again, Gabe, glad to see that most of the pictures we have are pretty pictures, not necessarily the rough stuff that we had earlier on.
Oh, for sure. And glad that those reports have kind of calmed down a little bit, and knock on wood, that does continue through the rest of the evening. But we do still have a few severe thunderstorm warnings being issued for Marion, Franklin, Lamar, and Pickens County, all basically a different storm that's covering it. And you can see that Franklin County, it's our latest severe thunderstorm warning, but not necessarily the one that will expire the latest. You can see expiring at 8:15 for Franklin County. It's going to be that far northeast corner, just northeast of Russellville there. And that's where, you know, we talked about the increase in lightning, but there's also some potential for some small hail within that. But really the main threat is going to be that wind kind of moving on through. You know, Matt, you talked about it. If there was the right environment for these storms, there would definitely be some interesting rotating storms that could be on the table. While there might be rotation detected here and there, it's not tornadic rotation. We're not expecting tornadoes out of today at all. So that's a positive with today's forecast. But wind has been a factor. Although it was straight line, it was still a factor throughout this evening. But as we track this out, one of the things that I wanted to see is the lightning, and that has seen an increase as well. What we're looking at is, you know what, that might be a hole in the radar now I'm looking at it. Yeah, so not necessarily a rotating storm by any means, but as we track that out, I do want to take it through the Bethsaida community more towards the Moulton community in just a moment. So as we track out that leading edge, I'm going to try and get it all here, even down there towards Highway 24, and we're going to keep at about 30 miles an hour. They're moving southeast through 24. Concord, we're 747. Newburgh, 749. Wolf Springs, 749. Needmore and Mount Hope by 754. Landersville, 755. Hickory Grove, 802. Moulton, 808. There towards the Pinhook community, 815. Speak by 824. And Oakville by 827. So looking to the south there, Looks like they have expired that Marion County storm because it's just become outflow dominant. And honestly, I expect the bulk of these storms to start to become outflow dominant because what you're seeing here, and I'll put it on an hour loop to give you the best visual. But as we put it on that hour loop, you see how the outflow boundary is kind of riding the leading edge of these storms, and that's what's firing these off as they move through the area. Now look at the distance we're talking about between the outflow boundary and these storms. While additional development along the boundary is not at all impossible, see that towards Hanceville and the Good Hope community, whereas here in northwest Mississippi and honestly northwest Alabama and central parts of Alabama, that's where these have become more outflow dominant. So it's not these storms we're worried about anymore, but perhaps any development that happens there towards the south and east. So while the warning is in place until 8:30, reports have not been there. And we also are not seeing an increase in the strength of these storms. In fact, they are starting to weaken a little bit more. So that's a positive. I mean, that wind signature still there along Highway 43 is one to pay attention to. I mean, that'd be right there in the bulk of these storms. So as it's moving along 43, I would say that's the one that we need to monitor. But putting it back in wind mode here, we go right at the heart. Yeah, 30 to 40 miles an hour is what we're getting detected aloft. So it still can be impactful, but definitely not seeing the strength of the winds that we saw a little bit earlier on. So tracking that out, again, moving more towards the east. We're going to keep this at about 30 miles an hour. And I'm not seeing anything overly impressive on this, but enough that we can put a track on that through Fayette County. And this is a little bit outside of our viewing area, but can't hurt to let our neighbors know what they can experience. Fayette, 749 towards Bobo, 752. Hubertville by 756. The Gumbud, that's my new town name. Every severe weather coverage, there's always one town that pops up that I did not know before. So there you go, Gumbud, 802. Bankston, 808. Cleveland, 809. Barry, 818. Penley, 822. Salem, closer to 827. And Carbon Hill by 829. That's through Fayette County, again, a little bit outside of our viewing area. So I would say what we're watching right now is this one up there towards Franklin County, moving overhead as we speak. But the heaviest sections of this really out north of there, more towards Colbert County, Colbert, Alabama. Compared to what we're getting in Franklin County. But right along that leading edge, it's just going to be that far northeast corner that's seeing those potential impacts. Looking more at, I want to look back at the outflow boundary because that was a little bit impressive earlier on and did have some gusty winds attached to it. Not seeing as strong of a return there. I would say of this entire cluster down there towards Fayette, Lamar, Pickens, and Tuscaloosa County, that part there towards Fayette stands out as potentially the most impactful there. So that's a positive. And again, that means reports should be coming down a little bit more. I do want to look back at some of these storms towards northwest Mississippi, northwest of where we're looking towards North Mississippi, and those continue to stay below severe limits right now. Pulling up the chat here behind the scenes, I want to make sure I'm not missing any reports there. We did not get nothing in Calhoun County. William, I'm hopeful that some rainfall comes tomorrow, but I will say with this threat, I don't think you wanted the rainfall because it was a little bit more impactful and we didn't want that damage to occur, but for some of us, it unfortunately did. Yeah, trying to send in rainbow pics. So Matt, you need to watch out for that. More rainbow pictures potentially on the way. And then, yeah, so Brenda sending in that rainbow picture. So yeah, lightning in Caledonia too. A few of those lightning strikes occurring, but we're definitely watching the pictures now as the beauty starts to come in. So always love the end of the storms, the go to sleep that you can say. And honestly, it's 7:50, but I think Monday we can all go to sleep.
Hey, you're ready to go to sleep. You've been in here like we've had a job shadow in today, and I got a full day from Mr. Maynard.
Hey, Lucas has been great. He's helped us with some of the coverage too.
Yeah, it's one of the fun parts about doing what we do, and appreciate Forrest appreciate him for spending so much time in here today. Forrest sent us this shot here again of a rainbow over some crepe myrtles there. Using the Mississippi Live app. What else we got here? Again, more rainbow shots from a lot of folks here. This one would be from Boonville, Jan White, with a shot here. Again, some of the rainbows in front of some of the trees. Unfortunately, luckily there wasn't a lot of wind there because from looking from the angle on some of that tree there, that one probably has some issues after the ice storm that we had earlier this year. Still checking again those power outages and the improvement in that situation. There is some improvement, but still about 2,800 folks without power in the Tongbibby Electric Power Association coverage area. Tippah Electric is down to about 279 folks, so that has seen a fairly significant improvement. Prentice Electric, only 43. So again, that's an example of farther north there. The Natchez Trace EPA sitting at about 200 outages there. mostly in southwest Chickasaw County. Pontotoc, EPA, things are better. About 750 folks without power, kind of sporadic. A reminder that, again, it's not just wind, it's probably also some lightning to go along with that. Still sitting at a pretty decent outage there, about 1,500 out in Tishomingo County. I'm going to double check this to make sure that
I wonder
is
if
the
their
latest.
website, it might not be updating because it's been pretty consistent. They're usually on the call pretty quick.
Well, I mean, it depends on where it is and what it is, right? You know,
That's true.
It says work in progress on this one. Latest update 6:51. That'd been an hour ago. So it's entirely possible, because you're right. They're usually pretty quick. But there are some here that, you know, go back to about the 5 o'clock hour. So hopefully we're just dealing with some old data on that there. And then again, Northwest Mississippi, some issues there with Entergy, but those seem to be getting a little bit better at this point. So again, some improvements there. It just unfortunately takes a little bit of time, and so many great sunset shots sent in. Again, for the leftover sort of, this looks like some solar panels on there. Anyway, kind of a mix of clouds, some of the modest clouds there, catching some of those rays. Beautiful shot. Appreciate so many folks for going along with us there, sharing those with us. So I'll send it back over to Gabe, who is tracking again those storms that we have largely again in Alabama at this point, where any of the stronger ones are.
And talking about positives, this is also a positive. You know, one of the things we talked about was how Fayette County was the part of the storms that really stood out. Well, the National Weather Service in Birmingham electing to trim off Pickens and Lamar County. Now it's just into Fayette and Tuscaloosa County. So the one part of our area that is currently under a severe thunderstorm warning, it remains Franklin County, and that does expire at 8:15. So if everything holds, then here in the next 20 minutes, we should be in much better shape across our entire Mississippi Live viewing area. But even then, I'm not seeing anything overly concerning there on this storm, at least on our wind mode a little bit earlier on. Not as impressed there, but I will say that latest scan, you know, we're right there at the northeast tip of Franklin County. So this is more towards Lawrence County. I believe I got that right. Yes, Lawrence County, Alabama, that could potentially see some concerns a little bit later on. And no rotation out of this. And as we look at our True Shield roofing hail swath, while some hail is possible, we're not expecting a report out of that. At least not in the imminent time frame there in Franklin County. So looking much better, and definitely hopeful that that will continue to downtrend as it moves further into Alabama. I am looking out ahead for some of my family and some of my friends out there in Springville, out there in Alabama. Some storms are possible for you. You guys are getting that same outflow boundary we had a little bit earlier on today. So Alabama.
Now, I think I think we've reached that point. What is it? Northeastern Franklin. Once we get there, kind of east of Russellville, that's sort of outside of the area where we could conceivably wind this down. Because I think we're done with Pickens, we're done with Lamar. Yeah, we're down to just Fayette.
And I don't see any imminent danger for that far northeast section of Franklin County either. So
okay, well, if you're okay with it, I think we can go ahead and wind up our coverage here. Before we do, we did get some reports in a few minutes ago from some of the different folks, emergency managers. I think, and this would from our Emily Leonard just a little bit ago here. Large tree down along 681 Road 599 in Saltillo. That's up close to the house. 1502 4th Street in Tupelo, 4111 4th Street. So a few there. Large tree down on 371 and 178. Again, some trees down in the Moorville area. Large tree down in Shannon. Road 182 in Saltillo. Road 521 Saltillo. So again, kind of the northwest portion of the county. In Shannon as well. So yeah, quite a few trees reported down. Power lines down. Garden Park area along Birmingham Ridge. Yeah, I mean, so quite a few all around town and around the Tupelo area because of this, according to Lee Bowdry, of course, the emergency manager in the Tupelo area. So yeah, oh, and also some reports, I believe, Tippah County as well.
That's according to the emergency managers and our weather watchers out in the field sending in their photos. So you guys did an amazing job once again, keeping us updated there in the Mississippi Live chat and there on the Mississippi Live weather app. So Matt, weather watchers, I guess we just got the best of the best here in North Mississippi.
We do indeed. We do indeed. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and probably wrap things up here. Appreciate y'all for watching us. We'll take a brief break here for just a second, make sure we have everything straightened out behind the scenes. We might come back for just a hot second. So be right.
For years, it's been the same formula. If it bleeds, it leads. You deserve better. We are Mississippi Live. We're focused on the stories that matter to you, to your community, to your family, because local matters. We are Mississippi Live.